Part 315. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3155. The giant mosquito's whole body was burning with blazing flames. Jia Yan's state is somewhat different from his usual state. But it did not affect the two heirs. Jia Yan looked at his rescued son and grandson calmly. His reaction was very normal. You are in danger. As a grandfather and father, shouldn't I come? But you are not in the realm of the gods. Jia Rong was a little confused. What he asked was not whether Jia Yan should come. But in the intelligence a few days ago, when it came to Jia Yan, it was said that he had been entrenched at the door of the divine realm for several months, and had even established a trade channel that united many forces. Why did he appear in time when everything was going on? In other words, when a strong man has reached the stage like Jia Yan, he is really like a god. He has predicted that something will happen to their father and son and set off in advance. That's not right, the time doesn't match up anyway. Jia 11 didn't think as much as his father thought, he just burst into tears of gratitude. It was a close call just now. And now Grandpa is so handsome with his whole body covered in fire. Hey, Grandpa, the fire on your body seems to have burned your bones. He suddenly observed details. It's okay, I can't die. Jia Yan said expressionlessly, his whole body shook violently, his aura burst out, and the invisible aura swept away all the surrounding flames. The figures wrapped in exposed flames made Jia Rong and Jia 11's expressions change wildly. Jia Yan was seriously injured. Even the exoskeleton was injured in many places and was covered in scars, as if it had been burned into crystal carbon. This is... Jia Rong's face changed wildly. Is there anyone in this area who can hurt Jia Yan like this? The domain lord level who made such nonsense just now, who was unfathomable to them and his son, was killed by Jia Yan with one blow, as if he were killing a chicken. But who else can defeat Jia Yan like him? Injured. He quickly looked at Jia Yan's injuries. Very serious. The exoskeleton was burned in many places and cracked, and the exoskeleton was peeled off, exposing the nervous system under the bones. Could it be that my father encountered some strong man with the ability to use fire? That's not right. In the Milky Way, those who use this kind of skill are nothing more than evil ways. There are very few who can reach the domain lord level or above, let alone masters who can cause substantial damage to their father, Jia Yan. Stop thinking about it. This was not caused by an enemy, but by the subspace. Jia Yan didn't hide anything, he just explained while emitting energy, causing the burnt exoskeleton to gradually fall away and turn into crystal dust all over the sky. The 10th, 13th floor of subspace. Jia Rong only felt that he heard the myth and kept swallowing his saliva. Jia 11 on the side is after all a related person of the Jia family and knows a lot about subspace, and her eyes are extremely shocked at this time. Because of Jia Yan, the entire Orion arm has been conducting research on subspace. A few days ago, the top research laboratory in the Great Empire just issued a statement, saying that they have developed a detector that can stably enter the 9th subspace, and it is expected to break through the 10th subspace within 10 years. This is just a detector, the size of a palm. If we really want to launch some scientific research projects or manned aircraft, it will take hundreds of years. And my old man. With his physical talent, he has already broken through to the 13th level. You know, the further back the subspace is, the more difficult it is to enter. Entering the 13th floor, everything was on fire. They were a little amazed for a moment. In other words, Grandpa, you were still in the spirit realm half a day ago. In this half day, did you fly for more than 2,000 light years? Oh my God. Jia 11, who is relatively sensitive to distance, felt like she was seeing a living myth after listening to Jia Yan's explanation. In a few hours, he passed through 13 levels of space and quickly arrived more than 2,000 light-years away. This is no longer just a myth. Even myths don't dare to write like this. Haha, let's not mention this matter. You have also seen that I have paid a considerable price, old man. In the future, you should try your best to prevent me from encountering such dangers again. Otherwise, I will still have to endure such hardships at my age. I will be killed by you one day. Jia Yan's exoskeleton, which had been burned into crystal carbon, was finally peeled off, and his whole body became smaller. The exposed fresh muscles are magical and will not be able to assemble into a new exoskeleton for a while. This injury is by no means so easy to cure. It is difficult for a strong person who has reached the lower level of a territory lord to be injured, and once he is injured, it will take time and effort to heal. Even Jia Yan, who is an evolved beast, is no exception. Of course, he had already thought of a way. There are many things in the other world that are good for his body. If he devours more at any cost, he should still have a chance to heal in a short time. And this trip to the 13th level space is not without its benefits. First, he solved his fear of deep level space. Secondly, the long flight on the 13th floor also deepened his understanding of subspace. A steady stream of ideas and creativity filled his mind. He couldn't wait to test and develop new subspace techniques. If it weren't for some of White Dolphin's skills, I probably wouldn't have been able to survive the trip to the 13th floor this time. He also sighed a little. By the way, do you know where this guy came from? Jia Yan casually looked behind him and saw the already cold corpse of a domain lord level being. Grandpa, don't you know? Then why didn't you spare his life just now? Jia 11 asked. Grandpa thought about it too. Who would have expected that this guy is so weak that he can't withstand even a random blow? It's also a bit beyond my expectation, Grandpa. Jia 11 twitched her mouth, wanting to scold her. It's true that the great masters they thought were earth-shattering were nothing in Grandpa's eyes. He couldn't even withstand a casual blow. If he had attacked seriously, wouldn't the opponent have been wiped out long ago? This pretense is so fresh and refined that even Jia 11 can't stand it. But he really wrongly blamed Jia Yan. What kind of domain lord level existences has Jia Yan encountered these days? They were all territory lords in the galaxy's central star region, and they were already stronger than those from the outside world. However, those territory lords were also killed by Jia Yan with one blow. Secondly, just now Jia Yan flew out of the 13th level space, his blood boiling all over his body. The blood in the physical sense made him dizzy, and it was hard to say that he would be merciful. Dad, I have some clues. Jia Rong frowned at this time. Oh? What clue? Jia Yan looked at his son Jia Rong. At this time, Jia Rong no longer had the mentality of a young man who wanted to surpass himself in life and death. However, through the previous events, Jia Yan could still see that his son did not have no motivation, but faced the facts. The thoughts were suppressed deep in my mind. The man who was chasing me just now had several very obvious characteristics. Although he tried his best to hide it, I still saw that he had some shadow of the envoy who visited our Orion arm a few days ago. Envoy? Where are they from? Beyond the Northern Territory, on the side of the Star Battle Territory, the Beja forces. Greetings. So that's where. Jia Yan was startled, then nodded calmly. Jia Yan already knew the name of the Beja force, but he had never had any friendship with this force before. When they are weak, the opponent looks like a behemoth, one of the main sponsoring forces in the stellar battlefield, and it is impossible to have any interaction with them. But when Jia Yan suddenly transformed and became the galaxy level, and then promoted from the galaxy central star region to the territory lord level and returned, the other party seemed to be too weak in Jia Yan's eyes, so there was no interaction. It seems that the other party does not think so. Okay, I understand. Leave this matter to me. Do you want to follow me back to the divine realm first, or do you want to find flying tools by yourself? Dad, if you have something to do, just go and do it yourself. We will slow you down. We can just take transportation ourselves, Jiarong said sensibly. Jia Yan looked at him, shook his head and said, son, sometimes I really miss you back then. Now you have become a little tactful. Although this is not a bad thing, being tactful and worldly also means that you have lost your upward spirit. To be determined, to be a human being, to be strong, you still need a little bit of domineering. This time I am going to give you a good fortune, but if you don't even have the willpower, it will be useless for me to give you this good fortune. Jiarong knew what Jia Yan was referring to. But in the whole sentence, what shocked Jiarong the most was the word son. He knew that maybe his father also heard what the previous hunter-level domain lord said, saying that there was something wrong with their identity. Jia Yan's words about his son are really giving him support. Yes, I will remember what you said, Fate. I'm really looking forward to it. Just look forward to it. You can go out. You don't have to worry about any strong people blocking you this time. Jia Yan swept his feet seemingly casually. Two shadows, at a speed that neither of them could see clearly, threw themselves directly at the sides of the father and son's bodies. These are the two earthly clones of Jia Yan. It was the Taoist man and the old beggar. Although it is impossible for the two to fight head-on with the domain lord level in terms of energy, since Jia Yan mastered the power of the formation, the actual combat effectiveness of each clone has long been out of proportion to the power they possess. With the support of Jia Yan's endless energy, even if they can't defeat the domain lord level, they can still struggle with it, at least they won't lose. What's more, it is the territory lord level of this backward land. Jia Yan believes that with the combined efforts of the two, it is easy to kill the previous territory lord. If there's any problem, I can get there quickly. Jia Yan nodded lightly as he watched his son and grandson bow to him respectfully and leave the subspace. The two father and son also need such hardships in order to move forward more smoothly. It's not impossible for him to escort them personally. Firstly, he does have a lot of things to do, and secondly, letting them deal with the next things by themselves is the best ordeal for them. With the genetic talent of the array, their upper limit will also be greatly improved. The dream of a strong man is really possible, so, I can't let them continue to be an existence under my shadow. Children will always be, it needs to be exercised. Jia Yan looked lightly into the depths of subspace. A trace of fear appeared in his eyes, but soon, this fear was shrouded in madness. The madness that originated from the weak period now seemed to be reactivated after being burned for a few hours. I haven't had a similar feeling in a long time. Jia Yan needed some kind of outlet. Pain, and causing pain to others, can give him the real sense of catharsis. Then, this incident will make some forces clearly realize the gap between them and me, Jia Yan. Otherwise, they will always want to dream. Jia Yan stood up with his head held high, and calmly, bit by bit, sank into the depths of subspace. 10 degrees is not enough. 11 degrees barely. 12 degrees made him feel the pain. Until the 13th degree, the raging flames soared into the sky, and the body surface that had been burned to only the nerves was injured again. He was so painful that he could not shed tears, and just wanted to fly back to the 12-dimensional space. Hold on. In the past, no matter how painful I was, I never made a sound. Today, I can't even bear this little pain. Jia Yan. The self-proclaimed old man is actually at the same level. You are still a young man. Do you really want to be like an old man, so unsupportive? No, no. I still have a crazy heart, I'm still young. Jia Yan was on full fire, cheering himself up from time to time, his eyes becoming fierce. He saw the right direction. The giant mosquito figure pulled out a long strip of light and forced itself to run rampant in such a terrifying subspace. The nerves and muscles on the body surface were burned and solidified into carbon crystals again, and then new muscles and nerve tissue poured out again. Then new muscle tissue was purified by energy and covered on the surface, and then burned again. Jia Yan seemed to be suffering from heartburn all the time. It was even more painful than the previous hours. But within the body surface, the blue liquid that only belongs to the evolved beast, and the adaptability that only belongs to the evolved beast, have gradually undergone some kind of qualitative change. A large amount of Taoist power hidden deep in the cells and organs of the body has continuously become a supporter of consumption, providing power for qualitative changes. The bones, muscles and nerves on the body that had been burned to ashes along the way gradually reversed the burning process at some point. Click click click. They solidified crazily, then were burned, and solidified towards the outside world again, as if competing with external flames for possession of the body surface. The two soon came to an even level. No one can do anything to help anyone. On the surface of Jia Yan's body, a large number of burned exoskeletons seem to have been repaired. Is recovered with a thick layer of azure blue shell. But that's as far as it goes. The battleground with the flames has entered a stable period. The blue exoskeleton cannot stabilize the entire shape. The flames could no longer burn through the entire exoskeleton, and could only cover his body with a huge fireball that reached thousands of kilometers into the sky, unable to move forward an inch. The giant mosquito seems to have transformed into a small star, heroic and gorgeous. Call. Jia Yan, who was a little tired, took a deep breath, causing the flames to explode. It's so dangerous. All the Taoist power contained in my body has been completely consumed. If I can no longer maintain a balance between consumption and repair, I will have to exit the 13th floor, fortunately. Tomorrow is the last day off this month. I should open a new book in August, otherwise I will starve to death. Thank you for your support. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin Yu. Chapter 3156. He felt the defensive layer of his exoskeleton now. Fortunately we have reached our destination. Jia Yan turned around and looked outside the subspace, and his figure turned into a fireball. There is one characteristic about him that is quite characteristic. That is, if there are any grudges, they will almost always choose to resolve them in the near future. No overnight grudges. This is also the reason why he is heading here directly after leaving the Beja forces. Is this a force that pays homage? I've always felt that this force was weird before. I didn't expect that it really has a disloyal heart. The giant mosquito's compound eyes, which were on fire, now had a colder and colder meaning. Pay homage to the forces. Or it is called the Little Northern Territory among the four forces. When the Northern Territory dominated the entire surrounding area of tens of thousands of light years, all the systems of this force imitated those of the strongest sect force in the Northern Territory. As a result, he developed smoothly, and because he followed that force, he waved the flag behind him. Received a lot of benefits, and development went smoothly. Our Beiji forces should dominate the surrounding areas, but the Orion arm is an obstacle. A piece of intelligence information was thrown on the huge round table of the Holy Court of Worship. The people sitting around the round table are called the 12 Chief Festival Envoys. Each of them has a different appearance, but about half of them have a human-like appearance. This is also a major feature of this entire area, including the Divine Realm and the Orion arm, where there are many species with human appearances. In fact, this similar appearance does not mean any blood or genetic similarity, but it is because the environment is similar, and their respective planets or growth and evolution have chosen similar appearances. Someone took the information from the round table. It eloquently writes about the second mission to the Orion arm and the level of hospitality and attitude of the other party. Obviously, although the Orion arm is not powerful, their attitude towards the Beja forces is no different from ordinary forces. In other words, they are not regarded as a powerful force. The 12 knots caused everyone to be silent for a moment. We should all know that the Orion arm is not that easy to move. After a while, a man who looked like a middle-aged uncle spoke. It's that evolved beast, his name is Jia Yan. Not bad, the middle-aged uncle said calmly. The other party is an existence that has reached the lower level of domain lord. This strength has been confirmed, and the main factors and skills for his promotion are all included in the intelligence content. He is contributed to him by the so-called young head of the family. When the word contribution was mentioned, the uncle's expression was sarcastic. In the past few hundred years, the Bai family has been disrespectful to their festival-going forces. However, after the death of the White Dolphin, the current head of the family, they became more behaving and sent a large number of gifts and trade benefits in an attempt to maintain peace. But the Bai family's compliment was exchanged for another more powerful existence that left the Beja forces a little confused, the Orion arm. Or it should just refer to the actual owner of the Orion arm, the evolved beast Jia Yan. After reading the other party's information, the entire Beja force's 12 Jadu envoys were shocked. In more than 100 years, from a mere self-isolated backward area, a giant mosquito that reached the top of the Milky Way actually grew up. It is conceivable that this giant mosquito definitely has talents that others cannot imagine. It's true that it's hard to move, but the Shangzong sent a message a few days ago, expressing his dissatisfaction with the Orion arm. You guys said, since the Shangzong has expressed his intention, should we move it? Everyone was silent again. To put it bluntly, this Beja force was once defeated by the Northern Territory sect, and since then, it has been equivalent to a semi-colony. Now Beja seems to be powerful and has its own top experts. But behind these, Shangzong had stationed troops among the Beja forces, and it was almost difficult for them to solve any diplomatic issue. Everything must be subject to the wishes of the Shangzong. It's like a dog raised by the other party. This matter has been discussed so far, and everyone has nothing to say. Shangzong spoke and explained that this was what Shangzong meant. The 12 festival envoys, who are at the highest level of Beja forces, can only act in accordance with their orders. Since no one has any objections to this matter, let me tell you that when I received the information, I happened to get the secret information. It said that Jia Yan's descendants were about to cross the star road to the realm of the gods, so I was good at making my own decisions and let my strongest domain lord take action. After the middle-aged man like military governor spoke, the whole audience was shocked. Diangzi, how can you make your own decisions? This matter has not been discussed by us. If you do such a thing on your own, please forgive me for not accompanying you. If that Orion arm Jia Yan comes to visit us, we will tell him that this matter is your own decision. The expressions of the remaining 11 people suddenly became solemn. Each and every one of them is righteous and stern. The middle-aged man smiled faintly. A similar scene had happened countless times after the 12 of them settled on their positions. Every time, someone deliberately pushed things to a dead end, and the other 11 people made symbolic criticisms. Even if things turned out to be extremely unfavorable to the Beja forces, it would not lead to great turmoil in the entire Beja forces. It is enough for the person in charge at the top to admit his crime. But this time, everyone, I know what you mean. But this time is different. Dian Ziun Danfunking said, how long have I been cautious about paying tribute to the forces? Since the 12 of us came to power, we have no autonomy in every diplomatic matter and have always followed Shangzong as a licking dog. Are you satisfied? Diangzi. Do you know what you are talking about? There was a woman whose expression changed and she was about to stand up. But another man who looked like an old man stretched out his hand to stop her and looked at Diangzi. There was a vaguely strange look in Gu Jingbuo's eyes. Diangzi, Ming people don't say secret words. The tacit understanding between us means that everyone knows what it means. Someone stood up silently and ordered the meeting recorder who was recording on the side to step back. By the way, he gently tapped a certain direction of the round table, and a small hidden device inside was completely destroyed. This was something left by the Shang Zone to monitor them. Everyone knew of its existence, but after so many years, no one had destroyed it. This is a tacit agreement with the Shang Zone. But Diangzi dared to say this today, and they knew something had changed. You can talk about it now. Diangzi sighed and stood up. The 11 people seemed to have a premonition of something, and the old man's expression showed excitement. Buzz. They felt a certain aura coming out of Dion 11, and finally someone couldn't help it anymore and exclaimed with a hint of joy. The female-looking Jadushi's face was flushed and her mouth was open. You have already. Everyone was in disbelief. You haven't fully felt it yet? Then. Diangzi smiled without saying a word and continued to increase the intensity of his efforts. The entire round table conference venue was filled with some kind of jaw-dropping aura, and large waves of wind and waves were rising. Faced with this terrifying wave of energy, all those present were at least the first-level domain lords, and more were those who had reached the senior domain lord level. Everyone finally couldn't bear it anymore. The eyebrows are filled with joy. Laugh heartily. The old man immediately covered his face and cried. Okay. I pay tribute to the forces, and finally a low-level powerful person has appeared. Ha ha ha, with a powerful person like you, the Shang Zone, Bachan sect, they are nothing. There is only one powerful person at the lower level of the territory lord, and now, I also have the power to pay tribute. The female Jadushi envoy burst into tears. Great, we don't have to act anymore. She slightly clenched her palms into fists. Over the years, the 12 Jadu envoys had held all the authority over the entire Beja force, and they were also at odds with each other, with conflicts and secret actions from time to time. This is the need of the Shang-Bochen sect. After all, the Beja force itself is definitely not weak. Bochenju wants to have a Beja force that is full of internal contradictions, and where the strong and powerful people are secretly controlled by them. For this reason, the 12 governors had a very good relationship in private, but on the surface they were still fighting openly and secretly. But today, the Beja forces have secretly revealed a powerful late-level domain lord, and they finally don't have to act anymore. Yeah, we don't have to act anymore. Diangzi also had some tears rolling in his eyes. Having endured humiliation and burden for thousands of years, he had been secretly preparing for today. Thousands of years ago, he reached the level of senior domain lord, and for the next advancement, he tried his best to conceal himself from others as much as possible. He even used other identities to personally go to the crisis-ridden central star field of the galaxy several times to look for teachers and friends, and experienced a lot of fighting and pain. He has gone through a lot until today. Too much is hidden too. Finally exposed. I just broke through in the no man's land in the hinterland of Beja a few days ago. My strength has not yet completely stabilized, but I can already tell the outside world about this matter. We'll get the word out. Thank you all. In addition, it is absolutely not enough for us to just talk to ourselves, Dion 11 said lightly. I just say that I have reached the later level of power. Some people may not believe it, or even if they believe it, they won't believe in my strength. The late powerful ones are almost legends in this area. Even if a few powerful people from the Northern Territory appear occasionally, they have almost become myths and legends. No one knows what their strength is. Therefore, if he claims to have reached the lower level of Domain Lord, he must have a convincing demonstration of his actual ability. It is absolutely impossible to fall out with the Bachan sect directly. Although we are no longer afraid of them, the bond between the two parties is too deep. Besides, if we fall out directly, some people will gossip. That's right, people will say that, and we will turn against each other. All the governors nodded. Although some of them have reached the lower level of territory lord, the fear of Bachan Zong is still engraved in their bones. Since we can't attack Bachan sect, then the best person to show it to is. Diangzi focused his attention on the information he had just laid out. Everyone immediately understood. You mean, Orion Arm? The female figure like Jadushi had a look of enlightenment. That's right. No wonder you, Diangzi, behaved so impulsively. You robbed the other party's family, and the other party will definitely not let it go. The old man like Jadushi's eyes flashed with a hint of relief. You are a terrible young man, Diangzi. I watched you enter the round table meeting at the beginning. I didn't expect that you, who was still a little unfamiliar at that time, would actually want to do this now so deep. That Jia Yan has not been promoted for a long time. Now he is at a similar stage to you at most. Even if he is stronger than you, he is definitely not much stronger. At the same level, it is impossible for the two sides to distinguish life and death. In this way, our purpose of establishing prestige and showing strength has been achieved. Diangzi smiled and nodded. As expected of the teacher, the student's plan that he had been thinking about for a long time was easily broken by the teacher. He said seriously, "This is exactly what I think, and I have asked that subordinate that the lives of the descendants of the Jia family must not be harmed. In this way, after a fair battle between me and Jia Yan, I will return his family to him, and I will also give him some benefits during the festival, so both parties will be happy." Well, such a perfect strategy attracted loud applause from 12 people. Of course, in addition to fighting against the lower-level powerhouses of the Orion Arm, we must also find a few senior domain lord-level forces to fight. Only in this way can we show the power of the lower-level powers. However, no one mentioned this in person, because they were fighting at the lower level. In the scene, this matter is just an ordinary minor problem. The remaining 11 roundtable experts were somewhat moved by the practice of eating Western dishes. This person was willing to endure it for so many years just to pay homage to the power. This is no longer a trivial matter, but a matter of family and country justice that people have to admire. Looking back on these thousands of years, Your Excellency Diangzi has really devoted himself to serving the country and the people. I have to say, I admire you, I admire you. Back then, I was a little bit rude to His Excellency Diangzi and was not convinced. Now I am really convinced. Ha ha ha. I should behave like Your Highness Diangzi. Once I am convinced, I am really convinced. Several Jadu envoys laughed, and some shed tears. The Diangzi faction seems to have a good reputation, but they have been scolded by all the factions as the sons of Bachan sect for thousands of years, and they are angry in their hearts. Moreover, when there is a situation, Diangzi often suffers a big loss. They can't remember that every time the Bachan sect has financial problems, they first transfer the crisis to the weak forces. When those forces can't bear it, they take turns. It's time to reach the point where the Western forces are coming. Several times, the Bachan sect ambassador sat at their round table and watched with a sneer as they made the decision to give up profits. It was like being slapped in the face, and every time the 12 of them were stabbed in the back. Today, I finally don't have to be a dog anymore. Okay, I have to continue to retreat for a while. When the Jia family is sent here, I will be able to be in the best condition to face the so-called power of the evolved beast. Diangzi smiled and stopped participating in this somewhat sad scene, preparing to retreat. And just when everyone stood up to see off the master who was destined to be the strongest in the Beja force in the future, and who was likely to be in the city for 10,000 years. Kaka kaka. Rumble, rumble. The following will not be charged. Oh my god, my computer usually sets the time 5 or 6 minutes ahead of the actual time, and the fixed card is released before 12 o'clock every day. I didn't expect that yesterday when I checked the computer and restored the normal time, it ended up being 3 minutes over time, so I'm sorry, this chapter still belongs to number 1. In addition, I just expressed my feelings about the last chapter. I really didn't expect so many brothers to care about it. I was a little touched. It seems that many people followed it until the latest chapter. In fact, you don't have to worry about my TJ skills. This book has already become a habit, at least for now. I think I will continue to update it. The new book will be published on other accounts. The initial setting is also about alien beasts. This time it is a more orthodox theme of alien beasts and tigers. After all, we can no longer suffer the disadvantage of being a niche within a niche. Please stay tuned. So, this book can never be TJ. Moreover, during my break yesterday, I accidentally looked through the rankings, and was horrified to find that our giant Mosquito has ranked first in the total number of words among all science fiction books in Kidian. So scary. When Lao Buletin brushed it, he felt a little like he was dreaming, and then he sighed a little. Our strength is not as good as others, but our perseverance has caught up with most authors. How about it? Let's fulfill our original promise. Finally, I still hope that everyone can come to Chidion.com and subscribe to the official version. To be honest, Giant Mosquito has been on the decline for a long time now. I just want to update my feelings, make money, and so on. When I say it, it is like a joke, so let's talk about it. In the last chapter, it's not a lie to starve to death. I hope everyone can spend a little money, as much as possible, to subscribe to the genuine version. If you have a lot of money, it is best to subscribe in full. Then Lao Buletin can eat for a few days. Ha ha ha. Okay, no gossip. Now, I'm going to code the new book, and I'll see you all soon. Bye, see you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin U. Chapter 3157. Ultra-high energy reaction detected in subspace. Someone is here. It's a strong man I've never seen before. Quickly issue an alert to the entire capital. The capital of the Beiji forces is a vast starry sky system that includes 10 planets similar to the size of the Earth. Although there is only one star, this is a cleverly arranged capital system that allows the entire city to have balanced light and energy. So when the shocking force in the sky emerges from the subspace, the entire capital can feel it. Just like the daily atmosphere, it changed instantly. A large number of people became urgent and forced to return in the starry sky, or entered the nearest shelter. Senior officials rushed into the air raid shelters of their government facilities. The powerful people have recruitment orders appearing in every communication device. No matter what they are doing, no matter whether they are injured or have something to deal with, they must rush to the designated agency as soon as possible to prepare for war. Under such astonishing attention, flames surged out of that twisted subspace. The original star was almost blocked by the flames. Although the flames only bloomed for less than 10 seconds, these 10 seconds were 10 seconds that made people stunned. No one could have imagined that something like a star could be drilled out of subspace. However, as the flames gradually cooled down and turned into an ordinary appearance, all the detection system observers who looked at the area lost their voices. He is a strong man. Yes, it's the evolved beast of the Orion arm. Region Lord's backstep? Damn it, why is he here? Go somewhere quickly. No, I will personally send a message to the 12 festival envoys. The giant mosquito's figure slowly blooms in the starry sky with all its power and grace. Endless flames, with a strange twist and burning aura. Everyone knows that the flames are not just emitting light and heat as they appear on the surface. Jia Yan, who walked out of the subspace, silently watched the outside world. This festival force is very impressive, well organized, and prosperous. It is probably the most advanced and civilized force he has seen in a long time. However, this is not the reason for him to let go of the other party. Oh! Just when Jia Yan was about to take action and force the person in charge of the other party to come out, his eyes suddenly condensed and he looked at the largest ruling star in the entire Beija capital. In that ruling star, he clearly felt some kind of aura that was also a greater threat to him. Is it the lower level of the territory lord? This Beja force is well hidden. He was surprised. I had already roughly read the information about the Beja forces on the way here. The information did not mention at all that there was any strong person in the Beja forces who had the possibility of being at the lower level of a territory lord. Unexpectedly, when he got here, he bumped into someone. It seems that he was recently promoted. Jia Yanggong was cautious for a moment, carefully feeling the opponent's momentum against him and the energy level of flying from the ruling star. He smiled disdainfully again. This guy is a lower-level domain lord. But he is just a newly promoted lower-level territory lord, and he is a lower-level territory lord who has never experienced the heavenly road. To Jia Yan today, the gap is like the gap between a bright moon and a firefly. Your Excellency Jia Yan. The rising powerhouse of the lower realm lord actually looks like a middle-aged earthling. However, his size is definitely not that of an earthling. Instead, he reaches a height of 50 or 60 kilometers, like a mountain giant. Wearing armor, Diangzi looks like a prehistoric god of war. On the other hand, Jia Yan on the other side just looks like an insect. No matter how you look at it, he is a wild beast, while the other person is a civilized man. But that's not how it looks. Is this something to eat? After Jia Yan saw the other party's appearance clearly, he suddenly realized. It is stated in the information that this Diangzi is the most radical and mysterious among the 12 Jadu envoys of the Beja forces. He has been carrying out some mysterious actions since more than 1,000 years ago. Unexpectedly, this action was to secretly advance to the lower level of territory lord without telling everyone. And he succeeded. Congratulations, Lord Diangzi, you have become one of my peers. Even though it was Jia Yan who came here to cause trouble, he still said a word of respect to a colleague of his own. It's easy to say, Jia Yan, I didn't expect you to come so quickly. Pointing to the west without changing his expression, his eyes met with Jia Yan's. He originally wanted to start a battle with Jia Yan to determine his popularity in the nearby star region. As long as this famous evolved beast's superpower is blocked or evenly matched, he will become famous at a high level. You know, although many people don't know about Jia Yan's last trip to the Northern Territory, the real masters still know it. They recognize Jia Yan's strength. So as long as Jia Yan is beaten, his strength will be recognized at the high-end level. You have already set your sights on my heir. If I react slowly, won't I be ridiculed by my colleagues? After Jia Yan thought for a while, he immediately figured out Diangzi's little trick. He burst into laughter. If you want to make a name for yourself, you can just find other lower-level powerful people. You actually identified yourself. Do you think you are the easiest to deal with? Moreover, their mistake was that they should not have taken action against Jia Yan's family. This is over the line, and it's all over the line. Sorry, this is the fastest way this force can think of. Secondly, this force has some minor disputes with you, the Orion arm, and we just want to resolve them together this time. Of course, for your Excellency Jia Yan and your family, our force we have a friendly attitude, and even if we do something uncomfortable, it is absolutely impossible to cause bloodshed in your family. Diangzi explained without a smile. But this explanation is revealing. He is still afraid. The shadow of a famous tree. Jia Yan's reputation was not achieved through his rumors, but was slowly built up one after another through the Battle of the Orion Arm, the Battle of the Bai family, the Battle of the Northern Territory, etc. Even though this evolved beast powerhouse has not long been promoted to the lower level of Domain Lord, it is rumored that he already has the strength to fight against the veteran lower-level powers. Therefore, in order to prevent the other party from getting really angry and hurting himself, Diangzi believes that a kinder attitude is still necessary. When Jia Yan heard this, he was speechless again. It's like the other person wants to annoy you, but doesn't want to completely annoy you. How can there be such a good thing in the world, Diangzi? Since your festival forces are about to confront me, you must be prepared to fall into the greatest crisis. The flames all over Jia Yan's body have gradually extinguished, and the light blue color on his body has become the main color, looking extremely gorgeous, turning into a dreamlike giant mosquito. If you can do it, then do it. There is no need to talk nonsense when ordering something. The two sides did not talk much about speculation. One is just looking for trouble, and the other is just looking for trouble, even if he doesn't hesitate to attack the other person's family, and talk nonsense. If you say another word, you will take off your pants and fart, which is unnecessary. The sky was getting quieter and quieter. But out of sight, a large number of battleships, powerful armies, and teams of top experts were quickly gathering. The urban defense system of a large force is definitely not just for fun. Even in the eyes of Bachan sect, the Beja forces could not be said to be on par with each other, but they were only weaker than Bachan. Such a system, against a senior domain lord, can easily destroy him in the capital defense system, and this is under the premise that top masters at the level of 12 Jadushi are not dispatched. However, the opponent he faced this time was a lower-level domain lord. This level of existence. As early as more than 1,000 years ago, a large number of forces had proven that numbers and troops had almost no effect on them. For the sake of your being a newly promoted lower-ranking person, I will let you take action first. After you take action, you will be responsible for your life and death. Jia Yan tried his best to act like a senior. Because the intimidation shown by the other party has been seen through by Jia Yan, at least now, he is no match for him. It can even be said that he is far from his opponent. Don't forget, the current Jia Yan has been immersed in the other world for a long time. Moreover, even if he hadn't entered the other world, Jia Yan had walked through the heavenly road at that time, and with his subspace talent, he had already tied with a large number of lower-level powers, and even slightly won. Facing a junior who has never walked the road to heaven and is obviously a newly promoted person. It's not that Jia Yan looks down on the other party, but that the other party really has no chance of confronting him. Letting the other party make the first move shows that Jia Yan respects a person of the same rank. Grateful. Diangzi also became solemn. He vaguely reads something from Jia Yan's attitude and aura. The opponent's aura seemed to be equal to his own, but it felt like there was something extra. The difference between myself and the other party seems to be just a little bit. His face looked a little ugly for a moment, but he had no choice but to shoot the arrow. Diangzi gently raised the spear in his hand. He is a trickster. Feeling an endless stream of late-level powerful power pouring into the spear in his hand, Diangzi suppressed his feelings of uncertainty. I don't believe it. We are both low-level powerful people, but I can still be so inferior to him. Diangzi seems to know a little bit about the later levels of powerful knowledge, but his knowledge is incomplete. Otherwise, after traveling to the central star field of the Milky Way so many times, I would not have known about the celestial road. How? In the starry sky, a phantom of a spear suddenly shot out from the sky. Earth-shattering. Diangzi knew that the opponent was not an easy character to defeat, so he was not ready to show mercy at first and directly used his famous fighting skills. Stab the sky. This is a stabbing move derived from Diangzi's marksmanship. He once stabbed once a second in an abandoned star field for 200 years without stopping for a second, and finally achieved such a shocking marksmanship. What a terrible marksmanship, with almost no flaws. Jia Yan was also attracted by this shooting technique and couldn't help but admire it secretly in his heart. You know, not many people admire him. Even if there are many powerful late-level domain lords who have fought, it is rare for him to praise the opponent's moves, because even if he is unable to oppose the moves, he either relies on his far superior strength to suppress him, or uses skills that are rare for him. Encountered. This marksmanship is one of the common moves, but precisely because it is so common, it makes people feel amazing and brilliant. I also have this stabbing technique. Jia Yan stretched out his foot calmly and stabbed one out. His foot assassination technique is also a powerful combat skill that he has cultivated over many years. Similar to his marksmanship, his legs are long and slender, allowing him to go head-to-head with his opponent. Clang! One gun and one foot collided, and the blue defense and the metal of the gun tip were completely squeezed. There were some squeeze cracks in the blue defense, and the opponent's gun tip was completely shattered. A large number of fragments burst into the air. How come? Diangzi felt his whole arm shake. He couldn't bear the strength, and blood streaks were rubbed out. The first exchange of tactics between the two sides showed their superiority. There is a huge gap between his strength and Jia Yan. Or should I say, it's not just strength. Dion 11 fiercely drew his gun and retreated, thousands of kilometers away from Jia Yan, his expression suddenly uncertain. Your Excellency Diangzi, do you feel it? Jia Yan's compound eyes, shining with flames, had a mysterious meaning. He even has the confidence to deal with such a character. He no longer has to use the subspace talent that he is famous for, no need to wander around, and no need to fight a protracted battle. Diangzi fell silent. His expression was extremely ugly. Diangzi, you have practiced for thousands of years, endured for so long, and finally achieved the lower level, but you still couldn't hold it back in the end, thinking that you can be invincible in the world with the lower level. Too bad for you. Jia Yan was unyielding when he gained the upper hand. He moved his body and flew into Diangzi's defensive circle. You want to break my fighting spirit? Get out. Diangzi held his gun and fired again, but this time he saw the giant mosquitoes move out with their front legs, and with a slight knock, the tip of his gun was swung away. A foot stabbed him, and Diangzi retreated quickly, but he failed to do his best, and a trace of blood appeared on his chest. The defensive armor was also extensively damaged. On the battlefield, a large number of sirens sounded, each one louder than the last. Countless strategic attack weapons are aimed at the center of the battlefield, including space weapons that can threaten even senior domain lords. But at this time, facing the center of the confrontation between the two domain lords, they were unable to even aim. There were only the frantic shouting and cursing of a large number of people in various command centers, as well as the sound of countless button presses for emergency temporary adjustments of directions and parameters. But it's no use. At the beginning of the battlefield, they knew it after trying it once. The lower level power, looking for the book, is completely different from everyone's imagination of being only slightly stronger than the senior domain lord. This is a different creature in a sense. It is impossible for non-late level powerful beings to cause any harm to them. Master Diangzi, you must win. A military general level expert had just rushed to the edge of the battlefield when his eyes were involuntarily attracted by the large fire in the center of the battle circle. He is a domain lord level expert who has experienced hundreds of battles. But when he cast his eyes towards the battlefield, he discovered bitterly that he couldn't even see clearly the two figures in the battle. It was as if the opponent's speed exceeded the limit of his vision. This shouldn't be the case. No matter how strong the territory lord's lower level is, it cannot be so strong as the territory lord's first level that it can't even be seen. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3158. The only problem is that one of the two uses certain skills. And this skill user. There is no doubt that it is the invading enemy Jia Yan. Puff. Another long stream of blood was sprinkled in the starry sky. The barrel of the gun was completely broken. Diangzi's eyes showed confusion and despair. He crashed into a capital planet, causing landslides, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. In an instant, the planet that was originally a paradise has suddenly become a hell where life is restricted. Skills, abilities, including combat experience, I have lost so much. I do not believe. Diangzi's eyes became serious. Want to resist? Jia Yan had a cold face, and Yun Danfan gently tapped his foot. Dion 11, who was about to launch a counter-attack with a certain skill just now, was directly defeated by this move. How can this be seen? Diangzi is going crazy. He clearly didn't feel that Jia Yan was much stronger than him, nor did he feel that Jia Yan had any extraordinary fighting strength. However, in the eyes of the opponent, his own moves were seen through like a baby. He vaguely understood. What did Jia Yan mean by a pity just now? He knew that in the central star field of the Milky Way, there were some legends of top domain lords. Those who were promoted to the lower levels of top domain lords needed to undergo some kind of baptism. But he returned to the Beiji forces without getting that information. Now retribution has come. There is such a gap between the strong ones who open the way and the lower level ones who don't open the way. Jia Yan clicked his tongue in surprise. He originally thought that the gap between the lower level powers was not that big. But it's right to think about it. He has not only ascended to heaven. It's still an existence that has taken more than a dozen steps. Simply based on the number of steps on the road to heaven, today's Chuxing and Ji are probably not as far as Jia Yan. This is the reason why Diangzi cannot beat Jia Yan. And the gap is too big. You bastard, I won't spare you the favor. Diangzi's eyes became quite ugly, and a suppressed fighting power was brewing inside his body. You think too much. Jia Yan unhurriedly stretched out his foot, and stabbed the opponent's chest directly with the slender giant Mosquito's forefoot, completely piercing his arm that turned into a gun. Puff. Blood splattered. Ah! The trick that Dion 11 was planning to cultivate was directly suppressed into himself by this blow, and the repulsive force came out, causing him to be seriously injured. The puncture wound to his arm was nothing. He retreated violently, bruised. After hundreds of moves, he didn't know that the gap between himself and Jia Yan was too big to be overcome. This was even if the opponent didn't use his subspace talent, which he is famous for. It shows that no one is serious about it. Why? I don't believe it. Panic and disbelief filled his eyes. This was completely different from what he had imagined. One wrong step, no matter what. Just accept your fate. It's my fault that you chose me as your target. Jia Yan gradually approached. Diangzi, who was still a little immersed in his own thoughts, also reacted. This Jia Yan actually more than defeated himself. Does he want to do more? You want to kill me? Diangzi's eyes were filled with madness and a hint of lust. If a person does something wrong, there must be a corresponding reward. Otherwise, everyone can do something wrong, and the world will be in chaos. Jia Yan did not respond directly to the other party, but the meaning in his words was equivalent to a positive response. If you want to kill me, come and see if I can be killed by you at the same level. Diangzi finally turned completely crazy. I think he also experienced countless lives and deaths before finally reaching this point. Except for the last moment, when he was too bold and made a wrong move, at other times, he was also an indomitable master. As you wish. Jia Yan calmly approached this powerful man who looked like a middle-aged man on earth. Go to hell. The two used another move that was completely similar to the original one. Turn your westernized arm into a spear, and stab with one spear. Jia Yan, on the other hand, used his front feet to collide with the opponent's spear and fist without any tricks. Then, the two of them flew past each other amid the lightning and flint. After crossing the figures, all the voices from all directions, the anxious roars of countless people, the roar of countless warship engines, and the mourning of countless people, everything stopped. This still picture only lasted less than a second. After a second, all the pictures were torn apart, like broken mirror fragments. Clang! Flowers in the mirror and moon in the water are like Diangzi's life. It was full of ups and downs, and in the end I thought I had reached the top. However, at this peak time, I encountered the biggest and most powerless Waterloo in my life. Such a fast move. Diangzi's throat was completely cut off, and his head rolled feebly into the starry sky. At the same time, the power belonging to the top master also exploded in his remaining body, otherwise it would be difficult to kill such a powerful master. The bodies of the late domain lords are rolling in the universe, and it is impossible for them to die for the time being. If there is no external influence, these corpses may be enough to drift in the galaxy to the distant future of infinite time. Did not expect. Jia Yan looked at this powerful person of lower rank with a complicated expression. There was a sigh in his eyes, and also a bit of sadness. Any existence that has reached this point is no small matter. Jia Yan once thought that he could kill a master of the lower level of the territory lord, but he did not expect to do it near his hometown. And he is an existence that has only reached the lower level of first-time domain master. You're not weak, nor did you do anything wrong, it's just that you have some bad luck. Let me ask, if Dion 11 had faced other lower-level powers, or even Chuxing and Jiji, there might not have been this death catastrophe. But what he faced was an evolved beast. Jia Yan, the evolved beast, has killed too many enemies in his life. Others may spare their lives for the sake of their peers. But Jia Yan won't. To touch one's own heirs is to touch Jia Yan's reverse scale. Diangzi is dead. How is this possible? Didn't Diangzi also reach the back steps? Is it possible that Diangzi is not a lower class at all? Damn it, now is not the time to talk about that. What should we do now? This Jia Yan is still murderous. No, he wants to take action. Isn't he satisfied with killing a low-ranking powerful person from my Beja force? Witnessing that Dion 11, the strongest person and the strongest guardian of the Beja forces, died at Jia Yan's feet without resisting for too long. The entire top leadership of Diangzi forces was in chaos. Among the 11 governors of the Round Table, some were frightened, some were filled with hatred, and some had complicated expressions. However, none of this can hinder Jia Yan's next actions. Jia Yan looked around at the large number of warships surrounding him or escaping, as well as the masters who vaguely formed some kind of joint skills. He sneered coldly. Thank you for your efforts to break through the limits. This next scene will be your punishment. As a top master of the late domain master level, Jia Yan would not personally kill so many ordinary strong men present. That's a shame. But he can use another way to punish the worshipping forces, and at the same time demonstrate the unrivaled strength of the lower level powers to intimidate both at home and abroad. After speaking, Jia Yan turned his attention to the Beja star, the only main energy star in the Beja capital star system. This is a red dwarf star that is not as bright as the sun. Because red dwarfs are the longest-lived and most stable stars, it can be said that the development and growth of the entire Byzantine star is inseparable from the nourishment and nurturing of this star, which is less than 3/4 of the sun. They all called this star Mother. Looking at the festival star, the dangerous light in Jia Yan's eyes became brighter and brighter. There were bursts of howling sounds, and a large amount of artillery fire came towards the area where Jia Yan was located. Even ordinary domain lord level beings would probably shy away from the overwhelming interstellar level artillery fire in front of them, because this kind of artillery fire contains ultra-high energy radiation that is extremely effective even for strong people. Even the senior domain masters did not dare to resist. No one knows whether a lower level domain lord can withstand such a level of bombardment. But what they didn't expect was that this lower level domain lord would not resist directly at all. I saw the giant Mosquito surrounded by artillery fire, its entire body shot into the space crack that opened at an unknown time, and disappeared into the subspace. Enter subspace. Damn it, it is indeed a subspace gifted creature. How can I fight this? It's not that the Beja forces don't have methods to deal with existences in subspace, but in the final analysis, those methods are only used to deal with ordinary subspace strongmen, and the strongest ones don't exceed the galaxy level. Now using it to deal with the lower level of the Territory Lord is just like a joke. And it's too late to change immediately. The surveillance department has sent the highest level alert. His goal is, the festival star. No. It's too late to stop him. How is that possible? Does a lower-ranking Territory Lord dare to crash into a star? What does he want to do? Just when all the worshipping troops and experts finally monitored where the evolved beast Jia Yan, who had left the battlefield, appeared. Jia Yan has already appeared in front of the Beja star. The distance from the battlefield just now is only more than 200 million kilometers. But more than 200 million kilometers are enough to separate us from the main battlefield, and it is quite far away. Only an extremely skilled existence in subspace like Jia Yan can leap such a long distance in a short time. He looked with bright eyes at the festival star, which was less than a few thousand kilometers away in front of him. This is the first time he has been so far away from a star. But Jia Yan was not afraid at all. Because of his level of strength, it has long been unknown how far the surface temperature of a star can be damaged. Experts at the stellar level can theoretically fly near ordinary stars without being affected. Having reached his current level as a domain lord, he is completely unafraid of the radiation and temperature on the star's surface and even deeper inside. But he came here not just for a taste of sunbathing. I saw that the giant mosquito had just regained some of its flames and started burning again. He plunged headlong into the stars. This festival star is smaller than the Sun, but only a quarter smaller, with a diameter of 1 million kilometers. The so-called behemoth giant mosquito, compared with such terrifying stars, has become a drop in the ocean, like a small stone smashed into the lake. But this small pebble is a spark that is enough to cause huge changes. The surface temperature of the star is only a few thousand degrees. Compared to the 13-degree subspace, it can be said to be extremely comfortable. Jia Yan was stuck on the surface of the planet. In fact, it did not reach the entity at all, but a large amount of radiation exploded. This level of radiation is enough to kill a star instantly. However, for the masters of the lower level of Domain Lord, it is nothing more than that. Jia Yan, who had just arrived here from the 13th dimension, felt that the temperature and damage were nothing more than drizzle in comparison. Not even a trace of his azure defense could hurt him. Bear. Jia Yan crashed deeper into the star. As he crashed into it, the temperature inside the star began to rise rapidly. You know, for a star with a surface temperature of only a few thousand degrees, the internal maximum temperature may be tens of thousands of times higher. At that level, even the lower ranks of domain lords would not be spared. However, Jia Yan is not going to that kind of place. Has it reached over 500,000 degrees? This temperature is indeed very pleasant. At a temperature of over 500,000 degrees, this heat and the damage caused are close to the level of damage that the 13th level of space can cause to Jia Yan. Although it can still go down, Jia Yan thinks it is not necessary. He didn't come here to feel the limit of temperature damage he could withstand. He is here to wreak havoc. Back then, I had already thought about how to deal with a star in a similar situation. In fact, Jia Yan had been imagining how to destroy a star with the strength of flesh and blood a long time ago. There is no way, the stars are too terrifying. This kind of luminous star that seems to be all over the entire universe is actually the most terrifying force. Even black holes are just variations of dead stars. Jia Yan thought hard and thought of several ways. Black holes are impossible, they are far from that level. But with such an ordinary sun-level star, now is the time to practice with it. Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe to see all chapter contents. At that level, even the lower ranks of domain lords would not be spared. However, Jiayan is not going to that kind of place. Has it reached more than 500,000 degrees? This temperature is indeed very pleasant. At a temperature of over 500,000 degrees, this heat and the damage caused are close to the level of damage that the 13th level of space can cause to Jiayan. Although it can still go down, Jiayan thinks it is not necessary. He didn't come here to feel the limit of temperature damage he could withstand. He is here to wreak havoc. Back then, I had already thought about how to deal with a star in a similar situation. In fact, Jiayan had been imagining how to destroy a star with the strength of flesh and blood a long time ago. There is no way, the stars are too terrifying. This kind of luminous star that seems to be all over the entire universe is actually the most terrifying force. Even black holes are just variations of dead stars. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3159. Come again. Jiayan looked at the superstar in front of him calmly and raised his feet again. A large and complex amount of late-level powerhouse energy accumulated at the front of his feet. This kind of accumulation is not only at the level of the energy of the powerful people in the universe. Vaguely, there is some strange technique with unknown meaning. It's the Taoist technique from the other world. Yes, even though he knew that the other world was destined to have a war with the Milky Way, Jiayan did not say that he was unwilling to learn the fighting skills from the other world. Practicing morality and studying Tao power is also a kind of respect and study of the enemy's strength. Moreover, just as people in the other world are eager for the materials of the Milky Way, Jiayan discovered that the way of the strong man in the universe and the so-called power of cultivation in the other world complement each other. He vaguely felt that this was the reason for the rumor among high-ranking people throughout the galaxy that the other world has a higher level. Distracted thinking about the above thoughts. But he didn't stop at all. I saw the foot falling down neatly. Poof. Another deep subspace crack appeared inside the Beja star. Endless hydrogen and oxygen plasma was poured into this crack, and the entire star trembled suddenly. If just now, it just destroyed the stability of the star, and if left alone, the life of the star will be seriously shortened and it will be destroyed in 1,000 or hundreds of years, then this time, it will be even more serious. There is a delicate balance within stars. Now that the balance has been disrupted twice, the unbalanced Beja parent star may be completely destroyed in less than a year. However, this is not what Jiayan wants to see. As a peerless master, what he wanted was face-to-face punishment, and what he wanted was to make the enemy realize the imminent disaster immediately, not within a year. Moreover, with the technological strength of the Beja forces, it is enough for them to safely relocate all the people in the entire capital system within 1 year, so his destruction is nothing. If it fails to frighten the heroes, his family and the Orion arm may be provoked and attacked again. Jiayan couldn't tolerate it. Pira. This time Jiayan stood up with his feet up. In fact, the two tearings just now caused the stellar energy to pour into the low-level space, which had an impact on the subspace. A large amount of low-level space nearby is filled with a large amount of radiation power, and the space inside is almost filled with hydrogen and oxygen substances and plasma. Therefore, if Jiayan wanted to achieve a similar effect, he had to forcefully bring in the more distant subspace. This cannot be done except by the mighty. However, the current Jiayan is powerful enough. The so-called retribution is clear and retributive. I pay my respects to the star. You are also responsible for the sins committed by the people you gave birth to, so. The feet light up like never before. In the blue brilliance, there is a faint hint of the golden color of the 13th level space flame. This is the power left on Jiayan from the 13th level of space. This force is enough to tear apart and destroy most materials. It is more sufficient to command low-level space at a certain level. Maybe stars also have self-awareness, or it may be a natural reaction. In short, the moment Jiayan raised his foot, the trembling power of the entire star became even more astonishing. As if it was about to explode, the high temperature around Jiayan suddenly increased to over 1,000,000 degrees. Bear, bear, bear. In the raging flames, Jiayan's eyes remained unchanged, and he looked into the depths of the entire star with an expressionless face. Sighing, regardless of the trembling of the star or what the outside world perceives as happening inside the star, the strong members of the Beiji forces roared towards the star and begged for mercy. "Put your feet down gently." Groan. It was like the sound of a sword being unsheathed, as if the pause button of space had been pressed again. All the noise stopped. There is nothing soaring, nothing grand. Some are just like a black gap in the black and white picture, like a drawn line, starting from the first trace and then spreading to the entire picture. Ka-ka-ka. The crisp sound finally began to appear. And under this situation, the noise was like a pause button restarting, and it suddenly became clear again. Ka-ka-ka. However, the spreading lines spread at the speed of light, making it impossible to stop them. Jiayan raised his head and looked at the endless stellar plasma radiation around him, which was rapidly decreasing. He was instantly swallowed up by the fifth-dimensional space distortion pulled by him. He couldn't even make a little struggle and splash, and it was completely consumed. The star trembled even more violently. The power of subspace devouring this time was so amazing that it swallowed up 1/10 of the Beidou star in 3 to 4 seconds. This area was like a spherical empty space, which looked quite strange. The fire was isolated. Before the distant plasma flames spread over and the entire space returned to a cosmic vacuum, Jiayan turned around and looked at the endless worshipping army and the large number of people in the capital galaxy behind him. All the personnel were in a panic at this time, and there was an uproar. There was no longer any magnanimity and integrity of the master of a powerful force. Except for Diangzi, all the 11 military governors, without any exception, rushed towards the festival star, roaring or begging for something. The Beija star is the mother of their Beija star, which breeds the energy and spirit of all the people in their Beija force. Every year, countless people from other star systems come to the capital to pay homage to the Beija mother star. If all the stars are gone, they couldn't imagine what the outcome would be. It's like the whole spiritual faith has collapsed. Want to make amends now? What a pity. Jiayan looked back calmly, no longer looking at the countless love and hatred behind him, and the countless dramas that were unfolding at the moment of doom. He knew that he was single-handedly responsible for the doomsday evolution of an entire giant force. The key point is that he destroyed a star with his own hands. Tumultuous. At the same time, a large amount of golden light finally arrived belatedly. The flames in other areas that had no time to spread were swallowed up by the huge heat bursting out from the interior of the star, and rushed out of the star together. Bye-bye stars. Finally exploded. The energy in the middle layer is not unbalanced, causing the balance of the entire star to be broken. The huge internal pressure and energy are not covered by the layers of the outer layer of the planet, and the whole bursts out, triggering a chain reaction throughout the star, and the result of this chain reaction. It is self-destruction on the whole astral level. When the dazzling light came before his eyes, Jiayan calmly tore open the space and stepped into it with a graceful movement. Afterwards, he went into hiding his merit and fame. Howl howl. The endless heat wave set off and rushed through the surface of the original Bye-Bye star, then rushed through millions of kilometers, and then rushed into an area of tens of millions of kilometers. Soon, the 11 military governors who came to the star were panicked and discovered the explosion of the star. They wanted to retreat, but it was too late. The 11 figures were swallowed whole. Their strength is all above that of the territory lords, and there are also senior territory lords. As long as they have enough life-saving means and their physical fitness is strong enough, there must be a chance to escape. But with such a huge number of capital residents behind them, it would be difficult to escape for a while. It's just that the process will take a little long. It would take at least dozens of minutes for the eruption energy of the Beja star to reach the main capital planet hundreds of millions of kilometers away. After all, this kind of explosion is not at the speed of light. Moreover, even at the speed of light, it will take several minutes. But Jia Yan was not in a hurry and watched with gusto. He personally witnessed in the subspace that the mortals on the Beja planet who were very similar to the people on Earth were in a state of despair and each looked for a way out. Unfortunately, the door has not yet been found. The early explosion shockwave has arrived, a large number of buildings have been destroyed, and countless ordinary people who are not very powerful have died from radiation or shockwave shock. What follows is an endless heat wave. The temperature on the planet soon exceeded 100 degrees Celsius, and mortals with insufficient strength were almost killed by the heat. And this is not the time when the main body of the shockwave arrives. The decision-makers of the stronger ones expressed their opinions on the planet. However, while there was a lot of discussion, some people saw the reality clearly. They greased the soles of their feet, got on the most high-tech escape equipment, and flew away from the explosion range of the main sequence star. At the same time, there are also some touching stories happening. For example, some people with extraordinary strength insist on taking care of ordinary people. However, their strength is not enough to protect a large population. Many people quickly release their power to resist the electromagnetic power of radiation shock waves. Gave up his life. Then, the final sweep finally came. The main energy body of the entire Bajan main star is impacted. The flash of light swallowed up all the stars, and every living planet turned into a lava-white individual, like a glass bead burned to white. At this moment, whether it was ordinary people who could not escape or a large number of ordinary experts who insisted on staying behind, everyone's lives, just as the glass beads foretold, had all turned into a swan song. And the person who witnessed all this, the only one who killed them was the giant mosquito Jia Yan. Jia Yan is also complicated inside. Perhaps this was the time when he personally killed the most people since his debut. A large number of innocent lives are involved. Maybe more than 10 billion, or even more. I have a lot of thoughts in my heart, especially after seeing many touching stories. I feel a little confused about right and wrong. But this feeling lasted only for a moment. I misunderstood. They are not innocent. Jia Yan gathered his thoughts and first issued a letter of denial of his actions and the innocent position of this group of people. Since they are in the Beja capital galaxy at this moment, it means that they are Beja Star people, or they are coming to Beja Star for business, tourism, etc. And everything they do here is a contribution to the Beja forces, whether they are Beja people or not. Then the senior officials of Beja were trying to deal with themselves and unreasonably wanted to kidnap the heirs of the Jia family. The two sides were already formidable enemies, so Jia Yan came here to retaliate against the Beja forces, so there was no question of killing innocent people indiscriminately. There must be unlucky people, and there should be a lot of them. However, that can only mean that they are unlucky. Jia Yan. Jia Yan. Jia Yan. You are so cruel. Puff. A Jaduzeo, whose whole body looked like burnt charcoal, rushed into the subspace and saw Jia Yan here. His eyes were like those of a beast that chooses people to devour, and he rushed forward desperately. However, a front foot pierced his chest lightly. It's not me who is cruel, it's you who are cruel. It's you who have forced yourself into this desperate situation. Jia Yan looked around. He felt that there were as many as 17 or 88 Jaduzeo level experts who came to the periphery of the subspace. It seems that there are still many hidden powers near the capital star of the Beja forces. Pity. None of them have reached the rank of territory lord, and the vast majority of them are still senile. They are probably the former generation's military governors who are waiting to die to support themselves. They stared at Jia Yan killing the impulsive Jadushi, and no one said anything. Finally, A white-haired old man walked out. In the dense and twisted subspace, he sighed and looked at the body that was casually thrown far away in the subspace by Jia Yan, and then looked at the majestic Jia Yan in front of him. He lowered his head and became respectful. Master Jia Yan, we old men have just learned that you are celebrating the festival with my Beja forces. Here, I want to say sorry to you on behalf of the Beja forces. Is sorry enough? Jia Yan didn't even look at him, but smiled contemptuously. The other party's lips trembled. Among the group of strong men behind them, some couldn't help but be impulsive, with blood-red eyes eager to rush forward and fight for their lives. After killing almost all life in the entire capital galaxy of the Beja forces, he still had such an attitude. Pushing the envelope even further is not enough to describe Jia Yan's current appearance. However, someone intercepted the impulsive person. They all know it. If we really want to discuss it, they are the unreasonable party. Taking the initiative to intercept and kill the heir of a top existence is unjustifiable anywhere. Although this powerful man used the destruction of a star as a prelude to kill almost all life in more than 10 capital galaxies in one go, it was inevitable that he would go too far. But this is the majesty of the strong. If Jia Yan doesn't do this and doesn't kill the chicken to scare the monkeys, someone will definitely follow the same behavior in the future. By then, both Orion Arm and Jia Yan may be exhausted and have to be in a state of protecting their heirs. Therefore, what Jia Yan did was definitely not about killing innocent people indiscriminately. But it is well founded, and wherever you go, there will be people who will support you. I pay my respects to the forces. From now on, I can obey the orders of the Orion Arm and pay the corresponding taxes to your star field every year. Jia Yan is not ready to argue with the other party anymore. He waved his feet impatiently and said, "Okay, let the specific personnel from both sides take responsibility for the next step, and you must continue to investigate. If there are any people behind the kidnapping of my heir, I must meet them within a month, go to their corpses or directly capture them in my Orion arms. Is this possible?" Although Jia Yan believed that some potential masterminds in the devastating action just now were either dead or injured, and the main character Dion 11 was dead, presumably the ones behind were just cats and dogs, but what he wanted was the attitude of the worshipping forces. "This, Lord Jia Yan, I have some information that I want to report to you." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3160. Less than half a day. A figure squeezed out of the subspace, you done entered it, and left quickly. Bathed in the tooth-aching pain of the shallow 12th floor, Jia Yan looked at the 13th floor not far away and trembled all over. There is no thought of getting into it. He also knows that only by entering can he train himself. But he had enjoyed enough of that sin today. If he continued to enjoy it, he would become stupid for enjoying it. Moreover, the body is actually already somewhat deficient, and if it continues like this, it may cause irreversible damage. So he chose the safer 12-level space. It's fast enough. The information that person just mentioned. Jia Yan chewed on the information he got. That piece of information was like a meteor that lit up Jia Yan's heart. Many details were connected together, making him puzzled. What was originally thought to be an incident dominated by ordinary forces in this area is now actually involved at a deeper level. I can be sure this time, it's not Concubine Kun's fault. He thought thoughtfully. Even looking back on his many previous experiences, he had many ideas deep in his heart. Will it be possible? He previously thought it was Concubine Kun who was doing this, but it might not be her. Or maybe some people used her to set up so many tricks on me. If so, it's really chilling. Jia Yan has been entangled with concubine Kun since the beginning when he was regarded as a senior domain master. Later, the matter of the galaxy's central star territory, the creation of the world between the Orion arm and the Bai family, etc., all have the shadow of this female creature. But looking back today, it looks like there are many doubts about the matter. Yes, I should no longer focus only on the female creature. These weird things have already transcended that level. Once the mind is clear, many details that have not been thought of before are suddenly recalled. Jia Yan was a little frightened for a moment. Many details may be artificial. For Jia Yan, this is like a big web. Who is it? Is it someone of the same level, or someone who is beyond the level behind the domain lord is taking charge of this matter? Jia Yan felt confused and confused. This kind of invisible opponent is the most helpless and somewhat unable to fight back. Fortunately, the other party must have another purpose, otherwise there will be too many opportunities to sneak attack or crush me. Jia Yan was a little upset for a moment. He thought his guess was correct, but he also didn't want to admit that there was such a role secretly there that made him, as a low-level domain master, unable to do anything. He is a low-level powerful person who controls countless lives and deaths. He has long been accustomed to the feeling of controlling other people's lives and deaths. Suddenly he was asked to admit that there was a shadow behind him that was vaguely plotting against him, which made it difficult for him to change at once. However, even so, my strength is real. Jia Yan sighed softly. Since he couldn't think of the man behind the scenes for the time being, he wouldn't think about him. If you have your own strength, there will always be a solution. But, I just killed so many lives. Tens of billions of people are killed at will. In fact, even Jia Yan, who has reached this point, cannot not feel the slightest heaviness in his heart. After all, he only lived for more than 100 years. Compared with those of the same level who have lived for at least 1,000 years, his age is too far behind, and his character cannot completely ignore ordinary mortal life forms. Well, according to the other world, I should calm down and settle everything down. Otherwise, if I enter the realm so quickly, I will definitely have inner demons, which will affect my will and cultivation results, and eventually turn into an unbalanced mentality. The killing machine. Jia Yan is now quite proficient in using the cultivation mechanism of the other world. He analyzed his cultivation and mentality problems and decided on the next path. The speed continued to travel in a straight line of 12 levels of space, heading towards the great realm of the gods. And just when he returns, the Beja forces were attacked by the strongest man from the Orion arm. The entire capital star system was reduced to scorched earth, and the news that even the Beja star was blown up was spread like snowflakes in all directions in an instant. After the forces nearby learned the news, they were all shocked and speechless. You know, let alone the power of the Beja force, just destroying a star is like a mythical operation for the strong ones in this force. Domain masters can only use human power to influence the balance of stars, and use tricks to greatly reduce the lifespan of stars. However, if they want to destroy a complete star immediately, and also use the force of the explosion to affect all surrounding stars, this is something they can't do. Don't even think about it. The power of the stars is the top energy in the universe, and it is almost the only stable giant force. The creation of all things is almost all related to the power of stars, and a star, even the smallest and weakest star, is not a behemoth that ordinary strong people can shake. Scientific and technological capabilities may be better than those of the strong in this regard. Science and technology have too many ways to detonate stars. But it also requires a lot of skills and resources, and the final result is thankless. As for strong men attacking and killing large numbers of people by destroying stars, there is no similar scene even in myths and legends. However, this kind of myth is being staged by Beja forces today. A late-level territory lord, an existence from a remote and backward area in the Orion arm, which has always been regarded as a barren land by the world, destroyed the main sequence star of the festival. Preliminary statistics indicate that casualties caused by stellar explosions have reached tens of billions, and subsequent casualties such as refugees may have exceeded hundreds of billions. Even the extremely powerful Beja forces are almost falling apart after this battle. The remaining people, with a total population of less than 200 billion, are still living in fear. It is only a matter of time before they declare their separation from the Beja forces. That's all. Dig deeper. Careful people soon discovered that the top powerful man who caused this tragedy had already done many things that shocked the world. For example, he subdued the entire powerful Bai family and killed the new head of the Bai family, Bai Dolphin, who was expected to be a late-level domain master. The Romance of Fairywood. Later, he entered the Northern Territory and collided with the Northern Territory single-handedly. After returning safely, the Northern Territory announced that it would engage in equal, friendly, and mutually beneficial trade and negotiation with the Orion Arm, which also recognized the ability of the evolved beast Jia Yan in disguise. Moving forward, it is no longer so shocking that the Orion Arm, with its new strength to unblock the star field, resisted the siege of several surrounding forces. After all, those forces were only small compared to the subsequent events. It can be regarded as a small power group. So scary. Not to mention, it is said that this powerful evolved beast has a fascinating reputation and achievements in the central star field of the Milky Way. For a time, Jia Yan's reputation spread throughout the surrounding area. On the contrary, the Diangzi who secretly advanced to the lower level of Territory Lord and was just about to bloom his own brilliance, had almost no mention in the reports that he had reached the lower level of Territory Lord. It seems that there is something wrong with the intelligence, or that no one wants to believe that there is a low-level powerful person among the dead. But it doesn't matter anymore. In short, the rumors about Jia Yan, about his reputation for suddenly killing tens of billions of people in this battle, soon made Jia Yan himself, the Jia family, the Earth, the entire Orion Arm, and even the surrounding Orion Arm in the several small star fields, no one dares to look down upon and despise them. Everyone realizes it. As long as there is one supermaster, it can really change the influence and even the strength of a large star field. Dad, this is. And it was the third day after Jia Yan did such a thing. In the starry sky, the Jia family, father and son, and others were welcomed by the Orion Arm's new battleship. When faced with the big letters on the intelligence and various mythical pictures and videos, their minds went blank. They recognized every word in the intelligence information, but when connected together, they almost didn't recognize the words. Grandpa, wasn't he still here to save us a few days ago? It seems that the festival star incident happened that afternoon. How is this possible? Jia 11 felt it was impossible. Although this place is not as far away from the Beja forces as the great realm of the gods, it is at least several hundred and nearly 1,000 light-years away. He believed that his grandpa, who had great magical powers, could easily defeat the Beja forces, but he did not believe that his grandfather could rush to the Beja forces to commit such a bloody and murderous act in half a day. Jia Rong was also stunned for a long time. Finally, he seemed to have thought of something and put down the intelligence document in his hand. Turning to look at his son Jia 11. He smiled bitterly and said, Xiao 11, I think it's no surprise that your grandfather did this. As for how he did it, you have to ask him himself. After saying that, he looked at his son who was shocked beyond measure with a joking look, and said calmly, How, now do you realize how your father and I felt back then? With such elders, the pressure is really great, very, very big. For a moment, he felt like he was back to the time when he was a child, seeing or hearing the heroic scenes of his father Jia Yan, but his cultivation was stagnant, he was helpless, he faced countless expectant eyes, and he felt annoyed and painful. Jia 11 paused and smiled mischievously. Well, big big, big. As a grandson, Jia-11 and his father Jia-Rong's feelings are actually not that consistent. But he could also predict that after this battle, the already famous Jia family would become famous in a wider area. And when they travel or meet certain people in the future, they may have a higher chance of being viewed with a colored eye. A super top master who can easily destroy stars in a single battle and casually kill the descendants of ferocious beasts with tens of billions of lives, only to end up with two venerables? It felt a little embarrassing just thinking about him. That's all. Even if some people feel shameful and disdainful of us, after this battle, it's unlikely that even if they have such feelings, they will say it in front of us. Jia-11 nodded wildly. If it were him, if he heard that there was a family in the star field next door, and there was a boss who could easily destroy stars, when talking to the other party's descendant family, he would not dare to ridicule in front of his face, but he would rush over and hold his thigh and shout 666 is more likely. But, Dad, tell me, is Grandpa really the kind of person who kills tens of billions of people casually? It seems, a bit bloody. Jia-11 couldn't help but say. He is still a young man and has the innocence of a young man. And when I see my grandfather, I always feel that he is approachable and very gentle towards his children. How could he kill tens of billions of people in the blink of an eye? Even if these people were all ordinary people, if they stood still and let Jia-11 kill them, it would be difficult for him to kill them all in a few months with his current venerable level strength. What's more important is that he thinks he can't do it and is a bit cruel. Jia-Rong frowned. Son, listen, you are still young and have not experienced battle. If you go to the battlefield, it is best not to have this kind of thought. Otherwise, it will be you who will die, including our Jia family. Do you want to see to that scene? Jia-11 shook his head and smiled helplessly. I know what you mean. If we don't kill others, others will come to kill us. I'm just sighing. Besides, with the current situation of our Jia family, Grandpa's current strength, I'm afraid I will never have the chance to go to the battlefield in this life. Jia-Rong was choked by what he said. Right. With such a grandpa who looks up to the mountains, do you still need a venerable person like Xiao-11 to go to the battlefield? Just like Jia-Rong, Jia-11's life, if nothing unexpected happens, will become a symbol of some kind of spiritual leader. And with the impact of this incident, their future travels may be more than stellar. The Master would secretly protect him, and he might even be accompanied by a galaxy level, or even, a territory lord level person. It is simply impossible to get them to the front line. It's not impossible, there are no absolutes in this world, and your father and I still have the idea of becoming a peerless master. Don't be lazy. Your talent is better than your father and I. Next, if your grandfather really has any skills, how can we improve them? You have to work hard for me to practice your talent, otherwise we, father and son, will rely on your grandfather's reputation to gain fame. You are willing to do it, but I am not willing to do so. I know, I know. Jia-11 is obviously different from Nai's father. She doesn't have that strong self-esteem and just responds casually. After a longer period of time, the information was also transmitted to the Orion Arm headquarters, as well as the surrounding Bai family, Northern Territory, Stellar Academy, Stellar Battle Territory, and Spiritual Realm. Come to Kidian to read all chapters. Thank you for reading the original version. If you have the idea of becoming a peerless master, don't be lazy. Your talent is better than your father and me. Next, if your grandfather really has any skills to improve our talents, you have to practice hard for me, otherwise we, father and son, will rely on your grandfather's reputation to gain fame. You are willing to do so, but I am not. I know, I know. Jia-11 is obviously different from Nai's father. He doesn't have that strong self-esteem and just responds casually. After a longer period of time, the information was also spread to the Orion Arm headquarters, as well as the surrounding Bai family, Biu and Hung. Bookmark. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin U. Chapter 3161. That person, really did this as the rumors say. Huge black screens and construction groups were scattered throughout the dark starry sky. In the biggest shady room in the center, several people who were in charge of the best interests of the entire project remained silent for a long time. They all have information. The above are the earth-shattering things that Jia Yan has done in these days. The incomparable holy wings opened, and the goddess master and goddess emperor from the great realm of gods both had solemn expressions on their faces. Especially the goddess, she looked at the information book in her hand, with various thoughts appearing from time to time. Actually, it's not just this. You should also have discovered that the person who was supposed to be waiting with me recently, and is definitely not a clone, has arrived at the festival in a short period of time. What does this mean? You should know very well. After saying that, before the group of people could continue talking, she added, and I'll tell you something more important. In fact, the day before he wreaked havoc on the festival, I was still here with him, in the dark where we were, communicating about the construction schedule. What does this mean, can you understand? The whole place was in turmoil for a while. Everyone's eyes turned into disbelief. Because as the goddess said, it only took Jia Yan one day to reach the Beija forces. No, if he followed the intelligence, he even rushed to the early battlefield that day, rescued his son and grandson, and then rushed to the city galaxy of the Beiji forces more than 1,000 light-years away without stopping, and directly killed them all, tens of billions of people. This is impossible. How can he be so fast? In 2 days, the battle was equivalent to about 5,000 light-years. This kind of speed is beyond their imagination. Even if the subspace talent has a unique speed, this unique blessing is still too thick. It should be the influence of the extremely deep subdimensional space. Sir, terror has gone further on the path of subdimensional space than we imagined. A senior domain lord level expert sighed with shame. This group of guys are either people with high strength, or people with extremely high wealth and status. Even if they don't rely on strength, they are at least a domain lord level, and most of them are senior domain lords. Although this area is not a strong place, if you really want to find it, there will always be some peerless strong people like the Zerg Queen in the vast land. When they gather together, they will form the current situation of strong people. And these powerful people, because they don't have much contact with people of the same level, and they don't live in a circle of experts, they are all a bit unruly. Even if they knew that Jia Yan was a master at a higher level than them, many people still had some nagging thoughts. Now, they have calmed down all their thoughts. Not to mention Jia Yan's ability to destroy stars and then kill tens of billions of mortal lives in one breath. Just talking about his speed of traveling thousands of light-years a day, they didn't dare to act rashly. After all, such a master cannot escape in front of him, and even his own territory can easily be invaded by him with ease. There is no solution at all. Since everyone agrees with Lord Jia Yan's strength, let's continue to discuss the matter today. This trade channel is a place that even Lord Jia Yan attaches great importance to. We don't talk about other interests. We only need to get this matter done. In your eyes, at least it has a certain value, and maybe you can get his guidance. The goddess regained her composure and spoke indifferently. She is such a stoic person, but even she can tell from her words that she is very inclined to praise Jia Yan. The divine realm has long had the intention of turning to Jia Yan. After all, that person's strength is too tyrannical, his subdimensional ability is unstoppable, and his speed is unstoppable. They can't fight, they can't escape, and they can't get away with anything in their own territory. What other ideas can they stir up? That's right. Lord Jia Yan likes us. It's our blessing. Someone spoke immediately. What they are discussing now is the issue of timber on the trade channel. Originally, there were still people who were planning to tamper with the materials designated by the passage book, such as replacing them with some similar materials. Although the defense and solidity would be reduced a little, without anyone noticing, even if Jia Yan's strength was astonishing, he would not be able to use it. They understand but they don't understand. They are even better at playing professional stuff than Jia Yan. But now that the Beja forces are at the forefront, how can they dare to offend that big shot for such a small profit? Even if it is possible not to be exposed, as long as there is even a slight possibility, they don't want to. As a result, things progress much faster than in previous days. Originally, even if Jia Yan was in charge, these guys would still dare to act against the will. In front of Jia Yan, he used his professionalism as an excuse to say things that Jia Yan didn't understand but seemed reasonable, delayed the construction period, and then asked for benefits. Who is willing to do something that is not beneficial? It's not like Jia Yan is so powerful that he can make others stop eating. But Jia Yan may not have expected that after he went out to kill the main powerful members of the Beja forces and the entire Mother City galaxy, he shocked these guys. With the full cooperation of everyone working together, things were surprisingly efficient. And in this situation, Jia Yang returned from the 12th level of space. Things have sped up since I wasn't here. Jia Yan was shocked when he saw the many senior officials who greeted him. The aura on his body was vaguely weaker than before, after all, he had traveled a long distance and fought so many battles. However, he knew that at this time, he should be 1 or 2 points stronger than when he left. If he was given a period of time to recover his energy, he might be able to increase his strength by about 20% in one breath. The tremendous pain in the subspace also gave him a lot of benefits. However, if there is no threat of heirs in front of him, it is absolutely impossible for Jia Yan to take the initiative to do such benefits. For example, when he returns, he will only dare to fly in the 12th level of space at most. The 13th level is really not possible at all. Dare to touch. Just as people on Earth know that exercising like torturing themselves every day is good for their own strength. How many people can achieve overdraft every day? Not to mention, such self-torture may have sequelae. Yes, this is our gift to welcome you on your triumphant return. Jia Yan chewed it for a while and immediately understood why they were like this. Sure enough, in a world of strong men, there is no benefit in hiding one's own strength. Everyone knew that he was strong, but if he didn't show it off like this, these senior and ordinary territory lords would still dare to compromise with him. Now that he figured it out, Jia Yan knew what to do next. You have done very well, so let's do this next. I am going to retreat for a period of time to recover the consumption during this period. Yes, I would like to send you my best regards, Mr. Jia Yan. The greeters watched Jia Yan enter the subspace. Jia Yan is not a hands-off shopkeeper. But he suddenly understood. I am not a professional. I was busy here and there, and acted like Corporal Lixian. The result was not as good as going out and killing everyone. It would be better to just rely on this energy and let them do it on their own. As a non-professional, even if I step in and point fingers, I will not get any good results. And because he was too close to himself, his respect and fear for the strong disappeared. After thinking about it, Jia Yan entered the subspace and was looking for a stable place to study and cultivate. Master, brother, let's come. Master, we are here. In the subspace, a huge figure flew out from the 10-dimensional subspace and came to Jia Yan. There was laughter and laughter inside. Jia Yan looked around and smiled immediately. It turned out that Edisha, who he had ordered to come to him, had already led Xiao Yuer and Leda, who were picked up from the Yin-Yang sect, to come to him in a giant palace. In addition, there are his 2 Onmyoji disciples. The eldest apprentice is Billy, and the younger apprentice is Beast. These two people probably have no real power in the yin-yang sect now and play relatively boring games. Since they are similar in age, they have a good relationship with Edicius Yuyur, so they also came with them this time. I've met the master. Jia Yan watched them standing at the gate of the palace under the leadership of Leda, and immediately flew towards the palace with a smile. Very good, you can come and practice just in time. Jia Yan entered the palace. The huge palace made him feel at ease. Vaguely, this palace has become Jia Yan's little home, which can be regarded as giving him a lot of convenience. Sir, the yin-yang sect has been going very well these days, but after learning that you traveled such a long distance and came to the realm of the gods, we were quite worried. Leda stepped forward to report first. Well, don't worry, there's nothing wrong with me, but there are some changes. Jia Yan nodded, looked at Leda, and suddenly remembered the embarrassing situation 2 days ago. If he hadn't been in the realm of the gods, if he hadn't suddenly possessed the ability to move in 13 levels of space, there might have been problems with his son and grandson. And if the other party then uses his descendants to threaten or blackmail him, Jia Yan may really fall for it. Moreover, the information that Beja Jadushi finally gave made him somewhat concerned. Leda, I may be looking for some subordinates who can be of use to me recently. Do you have any good suggestions? He suddenly said. Leda was slightly startled, thinking that Jia Yan didn't like him anymore. But looking back and thinking about it, he understood. In fact, the palace arrived here a day ago. Through Edicia's network skills, they also learned about Jia Yan's shocking behavior in the Beja forces. On the one hand, while being shocked and ecstatic about Jia Yan's current strength, Leda also realized that Master Jia Yan has no one under his command, otherwise he would not let his son and grandson be forced to a dead end by the regional leader. The point. Without using the trump cards handed to him by Jia Yan, he would not be able to defeat a domain lord. Therefore, the need for more and stronger subordinates is already an urgent problem for Jia Yan. Sir, I suggest that I shouldn't give too much, but I think you can start from 2 main aspects. Oh, which 2 aspects? First, of course, it is immediate combat power, which can immediately supplement the embarrassing situation that the Lord has no usable soldiers at his disposal. But for such a person who is at least a territory lord level, loyalty is a problem. Second, they are professional special talents, such as assisting you in researching subspace, conducting diplomacy, or being strong in certain fields. In fact, I have wanted to say it for a long time. Although Your Excellency is a top talent in the subspace field, however, there must be many ways that the scientific research team can help you. After all, adults, you must also know that science and technology can play a role and help the strong at the micro, macro and even philosophical levels. Secondly, if our formation training skills had been assisted by scientific and medical professionals, the progress would have been faster. Jia Yan nodded calmly. Rita was right. What about cultivating professional talents? Doesn't this require investment? He intended to test each other. After all, Leda is a person who has gone through a lot, and his demeanor has become a little more generous recently. He shook his head lightly after hearing this. Sir, although cultivating juniors and qualified people is necessary for any force or strong person, I don't think we need to invest too much energy in doing this. These cannot be immediate combat capabilities, and the most important thing is, sir, the path you are taking now is still in the early stages of development. What is bad to say is that even you, including yourself, cannot guarantee what talent is. With such unstable cultivation, it is better to wait until later. Besides, you have many people under your hands now. The Orion arm is such a large area, and with the abundance of talents, there will be enough characters to help you over time, so we don't have to put in the effort ourselves. What he didn't say is that the talents cultivated by Jia Yan may not be the same in the future. After hearing this, Jia Yan was a little surprised that Leda could say these words, and nodded involuntarily. He is strong, but he is not very good at cultivating talents. Find the book garden. The talents mentioned here are talents that are useful to him. For example, Yin-Yang sect. The initial creation was to allow him to develop his power, and then he trained several major disciples, and it cannot be said that he did not spend energy on teaching. But not long after he left, he turned around and came back with the power of the formation. He also launched a crazy reform of the power of the formation. Jia Yan knows that today's Yin-Yang sect has been divided into several camps in an instant. Some are old disciples who insist on the old Yin-Yang Dao practice skills, and the other part are those who have passed the formation gene optimization and want to move towards the formation gene optimization, disciples who work hard to practice the basics and want to get the opportunity to optimize. The two sides are in conflict with each other, not to mention incompatible, but there are already signs of forming hostile forces. And all this is because of Jia Yan's nurturing. The reason is that he himself has progressed too fast. The path he cultivates every time is the best at the moment, but it is not always the best. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3162. That's right. As for nurturing, it's better to wait until I've stabilized myself. Jia Yan was reminded. He was a little impatient before and wanted to develop the Orion arms formations. But now that I think about it, the total population of the small Yin-Yang sect is less than 1/1000th of that of all the races in the Orion arm, and it has almost caused turmoil. So if things are transferred to the Orion arm, what kind of chaos and social division will it cause? It's better if you think things through. Well, if I don't do the nurturing, the most I can do is let my children and grandchildren change their genes. Jia Yan's original intention has not changed, which is to let his family live longer. Especially the wife Satsumanich. She has already set off and is on her way. As for the other points, let's discuss it carefully. Things here are actually very tricky. You and Edisha can help me think of a solution. As soon as Jia Yan spoke, Leda suddenly became serious. Even Jia Yan thinks that difficult things are definitely not trivial. In fact, Leda and Edisha couldn't be of much help. At most, I can come up with ideas. But for Jia Yan, it is a kind of catharsis of emotions and pressure, which is also quite good. Anyway, he soon felt better. It's time to enter another world. Are the goods almost there? Jia Yan received a message from the Black God's clone in the other world, and his expression became slightly stern. After all, in this galaxy, although he has hidden enemies, the trouble in the world is the biggest. As the first strong man to come into contact with the other world, if he fails to handle the problems in the other world, he may not only be in trouble, but may also cause a disaster for all living beings that is much more serious than that of the festival star. Perhaps Jia Yan, who had just personally slaughtered tens of billions of creatures, was a bit hypocritical in saying this. But he was really prepared to prevent this possible catastrophe. In the world, the rule of Nyida's dynasty has taken a turn for the worse in recent times. The reason is very simple. The people of the imperial dynasty, which was already under high-pressure rule, frequently developed rebel armies, but almost all of them were small-scale rebellions without any successful cases. But this time it was different. The rebel armies of several imperial dynasties received support from unknown forces, and they were like sparks of fire. They attacked the city and quickly occupied a large area of the city. When he learned about this, the clone Black God was still a little suspicious, whether Ji Qiao and Chu Xin were behind it. However, after asking these two people through a special communication method, they got a response that they just wanted to get the benefits of promotion in the dynasty and had no intention of overthrowing the dynasty. After all, the risk is too high. As the lower rank of territory lords, they can still feel that there are people within the dynasty who can control them. Including Jia Yan, if he dances too much, I'm afraid some of the real experts in the dynasty will take action. So they didn't put in much effort, but this matter had nothing to do with them. Well, that boy Xuanghao actually got into the rebel army again, and was adopted as his son-in-law by the leader of a rebel army. When Jia Yan received this information, he was completely confused. Okay, Xuang, he doesn't look very smart, but he's not stupid at all. It's normal for someone to take a liking to him. But Jia Yan looked at it, and it was unlikely that a big shot like the leader of the rebel army would be interested in him. That guy is not a handsome guy, his strength is just that. Why? Jia Yan is a little weird. However, he didn't understand until he received a reply with specific information. It's actually because of this. Black God Jia Yan sighed. Forget it, since I taught him the joint skills with his father and he developed a giant version by himself, then let him do it by himself. When the child grows up, let him make his own way. At this moment, Jia Yan really felt that everyone had their own circumstances. When Xuanghao left, he seemed to have seen through the world of mortals and was ready to become a monk. But just a short time later, he ran outside and didn't stop. In a blink of an eye, he joined the rebel army, and even became in-laws with the leader of the rebel army. Although Jia Yan knew that it was Xuanghao who borrowed Jia Yan's joint combat skills to cultivate a powerful army, this also showed that Xuanghao was not incompetent. If his disciples can develop well, Jia Yan will not pursue so many issues of skill leakage. The rebel army actually captured 12 cities in 1 month. Xuanghao, who had just taken over as the chief instructor of the rebel army, was defined as the #1 criminal by the imperial court and was to be killed without mercy. Faced with this situation, Jia Yan was silent for a long time. Until the real body returns. Black God Jia Yan wandered in the subspace, heading towards the warehouse deep in the mountain forest. Well, the real body has actually improved. As soon as Black God Jia Yan approached the warehouse, he felt a large amount of enhanced insights and memory fragments from his true body. The two parties have a unique relationship between the real body and the clone. As long as they get closer, their respective memories and cultivation experiences can be passed on. Soon, Jia Yan with black hair and black eyes appeared in front of the giant mosquito. Both sides looked at each other in silence. Because there is no need to communicate at all, they are just the same person. Xuanghao, don't worry about it. The previous action only made him depressed. It's better to wait until it's worth taking action before taking action. Now is the time to let the child have a bright future. The giant mosquito's true form spoke indifferently. Black God Jia Yan nodded immediately. The moment the giant mosquito's true form came out, he had already received the thoughts from the true form and knew what he wanted to say. Let's see. Every time I bring a certain amount of extra resources, it will be enough for both of us to practice. Since he is ready to show off his grand ambitions, he needs to cultivate his strength. Ken. The real body and the clone exchanged various information. I learned from Black God that in addition to the recent intensification of turmoil in the world here, Black God Jia Yan also came into contact with certain forces from the outside. These forces claim to be people outside the dynasty. Their power is not weak either. Just when they appeared in front of Black God Jia Yan, there were several senior territory lords, but they didn't know if there were masters of the lower level territory lords standing behind them. Behind the scenes, those so-called foreigners ridiculed the dynasty. He thinks that the dynasty is Yelang's arrogance. This is enough to prove that the dynasty is probably not the only powerful force in this world. It also shows that the dangers of the other world are far beyond imagination. If each of these forces has a strength level similar to that of the imperial dynasty, or even higher than that of the imperial dynasty, doesn't it mean that, behind them, there may be one or several territory lords above them? This is a bit chilling. Jia Yan suddenly became solemn. After reading the communication process between the Black God clone and the other party at that time, And finding no major problems, he let out a long sigh of relief. It is already difficult to deal with one dynasty. If other forces of the same level are added, unless the powerful domain lords in the galaxy take action, the war will probably reach the Orion arm not only in the divine domain. Jia Yan does not doubt the strength of the Milky Way. But the strength of the other world also makes people stay silent. After all, the other world is a whole world, at least it seems that way now. Outside of the dynasty, God knows how many similar forces there are. If there are only a dozen dynasty-like forces, each with a few masters above the domain lords, then it will be a disaster for the galaxy. Even all the powerful players in the galaxy may not be able to deal with so many masters. Jia Yan became nervous. Then there is the statistics of the trade content of the family world. Putting aside the bad information previously known, the trade is actually booming. The transaction process has gradually gotten back on track. Black God's clones often sneak away to other cities to wander around empty buildings, and can maintain normal transactions for several days. The talented young people in the galaxy from all the major forces indeed radiate their light and heat here. The goddess emperor sitting on the counter is now called the Galactic Elf by the trading partners in the other world who also appreciate female human faces. There was no way, who allowed her body of more than 20 kilometers to be just a little elf in a world that could easily be hundreds or even thousands of kilometers in size. However, her exquisite facial features, good figure, and decent way of talking and dealing were all praised by people in the other world, so they placed the name on her head. God knows what the expression on the face of the mighty goddess emperor was when she heard this nickname. Secondly, some of the technological products from the Milky Way are legal and can be used here. This is also a good way of dumping. You can even transport the machines directly over and produce and assemble them on site, which also saves money. I had the hard time going back and forth in person. It is quite inefficient to let Jia Yan act as a human transporter for low-end products. Therefore, it is also a good choice to do other profitable methods of sourcing local materials directly locally. This is a very correct idea. You can win over a group of politicians or businessmen with real power. You can even find rebels who can stabilize the rear area, cooperate with them, and deeply bind your interests to them. In this way, when it's time to do something, they can also be used by me on some level when making decisions. Kurakama nodded. Not long after, the extremely small figure of the Earthling entered the subspace. Call. Jia Yan was a little stressed by the news he got when he returned to the subspace. No matter what, the world here cannot be too strong, but it cannot be chaotic either. He knew that judging from the current situation, the world in this world was vaguely stronger than the Milky Way in terms of the highest level of combat power. After all, the Milky Way is just a galaxy, and many of the extraterrestrial visitors captured by Shan Lishi's lineage in the other world are from distant galaxies. It is said that the nearest one is from the Uranus galaxy, and the other ones further away. Jia Yan has never even heard of their names. It means that there are so many galaxies corresponding to the other world. According to this theory, the strength level of the other world may not be able to be dealt with by just one galaxy. The Milky Way has nothing to fear if it only confronts or even goes to war with the dynasty. Even if the dynasty possesses a master above the domain lord, as Jia Yan inquired, if the time comes, Jia Yan cannot defeat him and can escape. Go to the central star region of the galaxy, please. The Tai Shang, whom he had met several times before, took action. He must have been afraid that the Tai Shang who usually didn't take care of things would be willing to take action when facing an enemy who was stronger than a territory lord. After all, they created the Pilgrim to inspire the younger generations of the galaxy. How could they turn a blind eye to the danger of the galaxy when they care for the younger generations at all costs? Figured out. Jia Yan's heavy mood relaxed a little. Sir, the relay communicator you wanted us to study has been developed. Suddenly, a group of researchers walked out of the Warehouse Research Institute. These are research institutes that gather top researchers from several forces around the divine realm. Their professional level is extremely high, so Jia Yan deliberately wasted some personnel quotas and sent this group of scholars to the other world to study micro and macro scientific and physical problems in the other world. Now we finally have the most intuitive result. Communicator. Because the laws of physics are slightly different from those of the Milky Way, and the energy of the world is not that similar, ordinary communicators from the outside world cannot operate at all here. This group of researchers quickly analyzed the situation, and after a large number of papers and discussions, they developed the communicator they are now taking out. This repeater does not have very strong wide area coverage capabilities, so we need to send a caravan or send people out to install the repeater device. It is inconvenient, but there is nothing we can do. It is our best solution at the moment. Thank you everyone, you can go down and rest. Yes. Jia Yan played with the communicator. In total, he asked researchers to quickly develop a dozen such devices. Intelligence is an important part of war. With communication devices, you can not only communicate well with friends, but also predict the enemy's opportunities or master more key intelligence. Most of these special communicators are sent to the Black God clones, allowing them to have a more flexible way of communicating in the city. But for the other sets, Jia Yan has thought of other ways to use them. Let the caravan and the people who are deployed start placing repeaters towards the rebels on the side of Jiqiao and Chuxing. I want to open this communication path as quickly as possible. Yes. Calling the subordinate who was dedicated to delivering orders, he asked him to take the order and retreat. Jia Yan hesitated again. He said that he didn't want to affect his apprentice Shuang Hao, who had finally found his own way again, but now he finally had something for urgent communication. Should he send it to him? If he gave it away, wouldn't it mean that it would affect the apprentice's own path to some extent? Let's do this. Let the people in the caravan who handed over to me in the past take him with me. Only when something happens that cannot be solved can they contact me. Jia Yan made a decision. Because of Jia Yan's mission, gradually, a large number of people from the Milky Way and those hired by the forces in the Milky Way began to move around the area near Xiancheng. The vast majority of people hide their identities. But this could not be hidden from the dynastic authorities who already belonged to the rulers. Xiancheng City Lord's Mansion. Several masters and disciples, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, have been acting a bit strange recently. I'm wondering if they are going to make some big moves, so I specially invite you to come and discuss what we should do. The Lord of Xiancheng has been looking better and better recently, and his strength has also improved slightly. When he speaks, his majesty is undoubtedly revealed. But his expression was dignified and serious. Because the problem was the object that brought him all this. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin Yu. Chapter 3163. Although Xiancheng has signs of rising into the sky, its overall structure is still a small city. In the small city, with the external business system from the galaxy, the city lord's mansion soared into the sky. However, if this person from the Milky Way has other conspiracies, then everything the city lord has will be wiped out in an instant. Lord City Lord, there is no need to worry. We have seen what they did. Don't worry, nothing will go wrong. Master Lei's second disciple was holding a wine glass with a calm and harmonious expression on his face. Even if there was any movement, there was absolutely no way he would tell anyone about a strict investigation. Because the benefits provided by Jia Yan really gave him a huge taste of sweetness. Anyway, he is a disciple of Master Lei and not from the political system. Apart from problems, he can easily get away with his background. Several other disciples, as well as several other big forces who shared the benefits, all nodded in agreement. The city lord looked at these guys silently. I know that they have the intention of killing their Taoist friends, but not the poor Taoists, because it really has nothing to do with them. Everyone, I'm not being alarmist. From what I heard from the information channels in the city, I already know that this assassin has colluded with an anti-thief army. He also wants to make money. Is it because he dislikes me for not giving enough? But then we also need him to have sufficient supply. Having said this, the city lord felt very angry. Xiancheng is now at a point where the supply of goods in the galaxy is hard to come by. After the word of mouth spread, the entire galaxy's foreign trade system was like a dimensionality reduction attack. Whether it was high-value cultivation materials, low-value craft products, technological products, or even some entertainment industrial equipment, they were all wildly sought after. But today, Jia Yan still maintains the same routine, going back and forth once a month. Although he finally figured out the laws of subspace, he can drag 10 knots of flying equipment in one breath and bring a large amount of cargo. But for the hungry merchants of the dynasty, this was nothing more than a drop in the ocean. Just like that, do they still want to reach out to the rebels? This makes people wonder what the intentions of these so-called galactic people are. Why are you doing this? This city is really inviting you to negotiate. You may not know that the assassin has recently sent a large number of caravans to the outside world, regardless of the reason. Under the guise of exploration, he has been exploring large areas of our country. I don't believe they have any ulterior motives, so don't be deceived. The city lord is still a diligent person in government affairs. Although he has been wasting his time in Xiancheng, it has improved recently, so he has the dream of regaining power, so he has a lot of involvement in political affairs. Senior City Lord, I will make arrangements for this matter, so you don't have to worry so much. That's right, my lay master lineage has been monitoring these outsiders for a long time, so you don't need to worry. Several senior disciples spoke absent-mindedly, and then the second disciple stood up and left. If it is just this matter, don't worry, City Lord, I will investigate it carefully when I get back and beat the assassin. I think he will restrain himself a little. Besides, he is a foreigner businessman. If you want to find out more about our dynasty, it is not a big deal, so why should you be surprised? Farewell. With Master Lay's disciples as examples, others will naturally follow suit. One by one, they all said goodbye with a smile and filed out. Could it be that I'm really too sensitive? For a moment, the city lord was a little lost in the meeting hall. I feel like I am being overly sensitive. Otherwise, why would those well-informed guru's disciples not feel any nervousness? He had never thought about it. These guys seem to be more involved in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce incident, but if something happened, there would be no reason for them to cause trouble. Even if someone wanted to cause trouble, relying on their huge background, it must be a small punishment. Besides, isn't this a problem that hasn't happened yet? That's all. Recently, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has paid tribute to the City Lord's palace. It's quite appropriate. I won't pursue that much. He also thought about it. If the sky falls, a tall man will hold it up. He is just a small city lord. Why worry in vain? Besides, in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, the only real strong ones in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce are at most the assassin and the goddess emperor who pops up behind. The others are not to be feared at all. Even if they are sent out, what can they do? Maybe. I must be overthinking it. When the city lord thought of this, he suddenly became enlightened. People in the other world, at least the people in the dynasty in this area, often have no idea of equality when it comes to ordinary creatures. Let alone believe that those with insufficient strength can accomplish such earth-shattering things. This resulted in a situation where the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce only had two masters, which made many forces secretly covet and be confused. Is this galaxy chamber of commerce strong or weak? But when they thought that only the other party could travel between the two worlds, they suddenly understood. If it's a robbery or something, then don't think about continuing to get goods from there in the future. As for the people in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, just send out a large number of people to explore the direction that the entire dynasty can explore. Isn't this the normal operation of business forces? They are just an average Chamber of Commerce organization. Although the place they come from may be a little bit magical, after so many days, they have only done the same things that ordinary business organizations do. How can we expect such a business organization to not be able to find out from the outside world? The world of transaction objects? This is not unkind. Under various interests and fear of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce managing trade channels alone, the entire dynasty's senior officials showed extreme patience and restraint to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which violated their contract and began to take action against the outside world. The rebirth of financial giants. After all, the products in the galaxy have so many uses and benefits. Even in the capital, the voice of the current Holy Emperor praising the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce could be heard. Therefore, under the situation of ups and downs, everyone, including the Lord of Xiancheng, turned a blind eye to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's large-scale spread out to explore the way. Anyway, the dynasty is so big that there is no limit to it. Compared to the dozens of cities that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce could explore near Xiancheng, it was just a drop in the ocean. It is impossible to explore the entire dynasty quickly without taking care of them, so how can there be any threat to the dynasty? Who? A breath bloomed in the air of dynasty. A creature that looked like a bull monster but also looked like a sheep appeared. This creature is 10 kilometers in size, but its aura is not as weak as that of a 10-kilometer creature in the other world. Reached the domain lord level. The method of traveling through the world here is really mind-blowing and unfathomable. This is a certain territory lord level bull-headed man from the Milky Way. He is considered one of the elder level beings in the outside world. This time he followed Jia Yan to the inner world, just to verify whether the investment by himself and other forces was worth it. And when he came in this time, he also took on a certain task given by Jia Yan. This elder's physique is very special. Even though he has a body that makes Jia Yan laugh, his talent in cultivation is simply earth-shattering. In other words, it is the talent of his race. Any skill will be mastered by him quickly. Of course, it is only on the premise that he has the ability to practice, such as subspace. He does not have the talent, so it is useless to learn it anyway. At this time, Jia Yan asked him to enter the other world to see if he could quickly master the cultivation skills in this world. The result also surprised him. This bull-headed domain master mastered and digested the basic skills of Taoism very quickly, just like eating and drinking. Jia Yan didn't even understand the method of traveling through space in the inner world, but he directly mastered it. At this time, he received a task from Jia Yan. Just over there. He looked at the direction, then nodded, and flew towards that side silently. There was a surge of energy in mid-air, and his body disappeared. Millions of kilometers away, his figure appeared again, like a bubble, elusive. This is how strong people in this world travel. It's here. The master looked around and saw that there was no one around. He immediately smiled and took out a small mechanical device from behind. This device reaches the sky and is only a few meters in size. Protected by a hard shell, it can be protected from damage by ordinary organisms to the greatest extent. He found the most secluded place in the forest, installed the mechanical device, and turned on the communicator. Relay number 357 test, the main console has received it, please reply. Here is the main console. Received, it can be further arranged. Receive. The territory lord left the forest without saying anything. Territory lord level masters were actually arranged to display these small technological toys. To him, a communicator of this level is really a toy that only children in the galaxy play with. The maximum coverage range of each satellite is only a few million kilometers. In some unique areas or places with poor climate conditions, the effective range may even be only hundreds of thousands of kilometers, so he needs to keep placing many of them. Although it's not too tiring and you can practice your power shuttle skills, it's annoying if you do it too much. Fortunately, thinking about the gains of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce that he had seen before, he grinned and was full of energy. Stable and huge income comes in every second, which is a great motivation for him. Moreover, if you walk around the world alone and see different scenery, you will also get unique private income, such as. He smiled, quickly flew down the mountain, and pocketed a bunch of medicinal herbs that only the medicinal farmers in this world could collect, but that others might not even appreciate. This is also a drug that has only been discovered previously. For these Galaxy Masters, it actually has the effect of training their mental strength. During his trip, he observed carefully along the way and picked a lot. Although the effect of each tree was not great, when the quantity was large, there would be a qualitative change. There are actually quite a few similar things in this world. He clicked his tongue in surprise. After learning from Jia Yan's mouth that this world was a treasured land for advancement that the late domain masters longed for, he attached great importance to the opportunities in this world. This task was not so much arranged by Jia Yan as it was something he fought for himself. Otherwise, so many masters under the domain lord were brought in by Jia Yan. Although others were not as efficient as him, they were not necessarily slower than him due to the numerical advantage. But he just decided to leave this task, and he was very happy. Are you the Galactic Chamber of Commerce, the strongest person out there exploring? Suddenly, while the Milky Way Territory Lord was happily picking up herbs, a voice came from behind that frightened him. Who? His eyes changed. Someone was so close to him without him noticing. You know, he is a domain lord. In front of Master Jia Yan, of course, he is nothing, but don't forget, he is also a big boss in the galaxy. A figure bathed in lightning suddenly stood behind the domain lord, although his face was also covered by lightning. But the domain master can feel the other party's eyes wandering on him. The power of thunder and lightning. Are you the Thunder Master? No, I am not my master, I am a disciple of Lei Master. Disciple of Master Lei. The face of the domain master changed again. Before he entered this world, he had heard a lot about the affairs of the other world. Knowing that Lei Master may be a master who can rival a lower-level domain lord. He originally thought that Lord Jia Yan and the others were too unfamiliar with the other world and looked too high on the powerful people in the other world. He was not sure that those Thunder Masters could even fight if they came in. But he never expected that before Master Lei could confront him, he would confront the opponent's apprentice first. Great apprentice. Is this momentum still a disciple? His face became extremely ugly, and his bull-headed body trembled unnaturally. This is a natural reaction when facing a strong person who is stronger than yourself. It seems that the masters in the galaxy are indeed not as good as our dynasty. Do you think the assassin is worse than you? The figure under the thunder and lightning asked with an emotionless voice. Senior Domain Master? Or is it a top-notch Domain Lord? The Nyota Territory Lord tried his best to keep himself as calm as possible and replied vigilantly, the assassin is naturally far stronger than me. Since you are a disciple of Master Lei, you can ask your junior brothers and others. They should know better than me. The other party nodded without sadness or joy. One is more than 10 kilometers away, and the other is more than 500 kilometers away, like a giant looking at a small insect. If the disciple has no other problems, I will resign first. Next time there is no mission, I will invite the disciple to dinner. Territory Lord level masters are by no means just flowers and plants on the roadside in the galaxy. The life experience he has is enough for him to make a judgment, stay away from this person now. He. The chief disciple of Master Lay smiled tepidly. It's just because I've asked my junior brothers and I still don't know, so I want to ask someone from your power for advice. How about? Master Lay's first disciple suddenly stared at this domain lord. On behalf of your Chamber of Commerce, do you want to have a fight with me? After saying that, I saw the existence covered by thunder and lightning, and suddenly a large number of arcs exploded across its body, covering a large area of the sky. You. The face of the territory lord from the Milky Way changed wildly, and before he could react, his whole person was swallowed up by thunder and lightning. Click to download the app of this site. Massive, free reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3164. Not back yet. That night, Jia Yan got information about a young man who belonged to a certain domain lord level force in the galaxy, and his expression suddenly became serious. This young man was referring to the leader of the territory lord level force from which he was born, and the territory lord level that he brought in this time. I am quite optimistic about the other party's talent, especially after he was brought in. He really developed his Tao power to a new level. Even Jia Yan got a lot of inspiration from what he developed. But it is precisely because of this that this person is unruly and thinks that his strength is not much inferior to Jia Yan. So Jia Yan sent him out to do the task of placing the repeater, and by the way, he was allowed to see how powerful the world was. Now that he has really disappeared, Jia Yan has a headache. Let me go and see for myself. The distress signal he left here with me has not been turned on. I guess no one except the master and other powerful people can make him unable to even send out a distress signal. Thank you, Mr. Jia Yan. Then I will wait for the good news. Jia Yan nodded. Not long after, bursts of Dao power aura came out of this warehouse land. Jia Yan first used his Taoist aura to cover his own energy, then broke through the subspace and entered it. For him, this has become an action that practice makes perfect recently. Today, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has become the center of attention in the entire region, and even this warehouse has attracted a lot of attention. It is said that there are official forces nearby to prevent all observation, but how can Jia Yan believe this? Besides, if others are not paying attention, the officials are the force they are most worried about exposing information. Jia Yan has mastered more and more Taoist power, and has developed more and more skills. The ability to wrap himself with Taoist power and deceive others is also one of them. If he leaves through the subspace, it is absolutely impossible for people in the other world who cannot pass through the subspace to detect his traces. Deep in the subspace, Jia Yan carefully observed the departure route of the domain lord. We can only walk about half the distance. The next road no longer belongs to the subspace shock area. Even I can't break into it. You must know that the subspace in the outside world is at least 20 degrees deep this time. Even if Jia Yan is a talented subspace expert, it is impossible to move around in and out. He can only move within the shock zone. After finding the direction, Jia Yan sighed and shot directly in that direction. This is the downside of calling in outside help. Because the manpower you call is very likely to cause problems. Even if most of them are reasonable matters, if there are too many people, it is always easy to encounter problems. This is definitely not the only time, and similar incidents are destined to continue to occur in the future. As for matters at the domain lord level, Jia Yan really has no choice but to do it himself, because he has no masters above the domain lord level under him. Including the previous incidents that happened to Xiaorong and Xiao 11, in the end I had to take action personally. It would be great if there were a few senior domain masters who could be used by me. He doesn't want much, just a senior domain master. In the central star field of the Milky Way, every late-level domain lord can recruit more or less senior domain lord level masters, at least they are not fighting alone. Unfortunately, Jia Yan's promotion period was too short, and his reputation had not yet fully spread, making it almost difficult to recruit senior domain masters. Take it easy. Puff. Under the hazy night, a figure staggered and ran away quickly in the desolate mountains and old forests. This is the domain lord from the Milky Way. Fortunately, he was a talented expert. After suffering a lot, he actually used his mature Tau power shuttle skills to directly escape from the pursuit range of Master Lei's chief disciple. He wiped the strong man's blood from the corner of his mouth. His face was extremely ugly. Fortunately, I escaped quickly, otherwise I would have been captured. Until now, he still didn't know how big the gap was between himself and the masters in the other world. A disciple of the Thunder Master could easily drive him to a dead end. If the so-called Thunder Master had come in person, he might have suffered an even worse defeat. No. According to the information, the level of Lei Master should be much higher than that of his disciples. Maybe I can't withstand even a face-to-face encounter. In other words, there is a gap between me and Jia Yan, who can roughly tie with Lei Master, same huge. He said nothing and fell silent. After a moment, he checked his position and prepared to fly towards the place where there was a signal. When he returned to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce this time, he obeyed Jia Yan's orders honestly. Although he was still a little unwilling, he recognized the reality clearly. If he still wanted to benefit from this project, he had to embrace it. Besides, with my talent, I am definitely the first person to fuse this power with the power of the universe. I have a bright future. I don't know who will be stronger in hundreds or thousands of years. He was still thinking a little unruly. Sure enough, there is still no one to pick you up. Just as he was precariously getting his bearings and preparing to rush there, in the corner of his field of vision in the dark night, two figures, one large and one small, flashing with arcs of electricity, suddenly came into view. As his scalp numbed and he watched, the figure in the huge electric arc shook his head indifferently. You've wasted so much time, disciple, go and arrest him. Yes. The small electric figure beside him nodded respectfully. Turning around, it turned out to be the lead master's chief disciple who had just hunted down this domain lord level expert to the point where he could not help but feel helpless every day. And for the first disciple to be so respectful and exude a terrifying thunder and lightning appearance. Thunder, Thunder Master. For a moment, this territory lord level man looked like he was mourning for his concubine, and he was visibly gray and defeated. He suddenly understood why the other party had been chasing him all night but failed to capture him. Are you preparing to catch a turtle in a jar and surround the area to call for reinforcements? Do you want to use yourself to attract more powerful galactic beings? But he knows that the Milky Way is now in the hands of people in the other world, and there is only one master who is stronger than himself, the giant Mosquito Jia Yan. But the relationship between himself and Jia Yan is not good enough for the other party to take risks to save her. Especially knowing that the person who captured him was Master Lei. It was hard to say whether Jia Yan, who had fought against Master Lei, was still willing to take action. In other words, he's going to be in trouble. I've met Master Lei. Our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has a good trade relationship with you. I'm just going out to explore business routes this time. I wonder why Master Lei wants to capture me. The Domain Lord level asked quickly and respectfully. At this time, Master Lei's chief disciple had already launched a brazen attack. He was exhausted physically and mentally, but he didn't dare to fight back. He could only deal with a few moves, and danger suddenly appeared. The sky and the earth erupted with waves of explosions, which were extremely eye-catching in the night sky of this world. Come to Cheateon.com and subscribe for the official version, and you will be able to see all the content below. Thank you for your official support. Not back yet. That night, Jia Yan got information about a young man who belonged to a certain domain lord level force in the galaxy, and his expression suddenly became serious. This young man was referring to the leader of the territory lord level force from which he was born, and the territory lord level that he brought in this time. I am quite optimistic about the other party's talent, especially after he was brought in. He really developed his Tao power to a new level. Even Jia Yan got a lot of inspiration from what he developed. But it is precisely because of this that this person is unruly and thinks that his strength is not much inferior to Jia Yan. So Jia Yan sent him out to do the task of placing the repeater, and by the way, he was allowed to see how powerful the world was. Now that he has really disappeared, Jia Yan has a headache. Let me go and see for myself. The distress signal he left here with me has not been turned on. I guess no one except the master and other powerful people can make him unable to even send out a distress signal. Thank you, Mr. Jia Yan. Then I will wait for the good news. Jia Yan nodded. Not long after, bursts of Dao power aura came out of this warehouse land. Jia Yan first used his Taoist aura to cover his own energy, then broke through the subspace and entered it. For him, this has become an action that practice makes perfect recently. Today, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has become the center of attention in the entire region, and even this warehouse has attracted a lot of attention. It is said that there are official forces nearby to prevent all observation, but how can Jia Yan believe this? Besides, if others are not paying attention, the officials are the force they are most worried about exposing information. Jia Yan has mastered more and more Taoist power, and has developed more and more skills. The ability to wrap himself with Taoist power and deceive others is also one of them. If he leaves through the subspace, it is absolutely impossible for people in the other world who cannot pass through the subspace to detect his traces. Deep in the subspace, Jia Yan carefully observed the departure route of the Domain Lord. We can only walk about half the distance. The next road no longer belongs to the subspace shock area. Even I can't break into it. You must know that the subspace in the outside world is at least 20 degrees deep this time. Even if Jia Yan is a talented subspace expert, it is impossible to travel back and forth in the subspace. He can only move within the shock zone. After finding the direction, Jia Yan sighed and shot directly in that direction. This is the downside of calling in outside help. Because the manpower you call is very likely to cause problems. Even if most of them are reasonable matters, if there are too many people, it is always easy to encounter problems. This is definitely not the only time, and similar incidents are destined to continue to occur in the future. As for matters at the Domain Lord level, Jia Yan really has no choice but to do it himself, because he has no masters above the Domain Lord level under him. Including the previous incidents that happened to Xiaorong and Xiao 11, in the end I had to take action personally. It would be great if there were a few senior domain masters who could be used by me. He doesn't want much, just a senior domain master. In the central star field of the Milky Way, every late-level domain lord can recruit more or less senior domain lord level masters, at least they are not fighting alone. Unfortunately, Jia Yan's promotion period was too short, and his reputation had not yet fully spread, making it almost difficult to recruit senior domain masters. Take it easy. Puff. Under the hazy night, a figure staggered and ran away quickly in the desolate mountains and old forests. This is the Domain Lord from the Milky Way. Thanks to him being a talented expert, after suffering a lot, he actually used his mature Tao power shuttle skills to directly escape from the pursuit range of Master Lei's first disciple. He wiped the strong man's blood from the corner of his mouth. His face was extremely ugly. Fortunately, I escaped quickly, otherwise I would have been captured. Until now, he still didn't know how big the gap was between himself and the masters in the other world. A disciple of the Thunder Master could easily drive him to a dead end. If the so-called Thunder Master had come in person, he might have suffered an even worse defeat. No anti-theft. No. According to the information, the level of Lei Master should be much higher than that of his disciples. Maybe I can't withstand even a face-to-face encounter. In other words, there is a gap between me and Jia Yan, who can roughly tie with Lei Master, Same huge. He said nothing and fell silent. After a moment, he checked his position and prepared to fly towards the place where there was a signal. When he returned to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce this time, he obeyed Jia Yan's orders honestly. Although he was still a little unwilling, he recognized the reality. If he still wanted to benefit from this project, he had to embrace it. Besides, with my talent, I am definitely the first person to fuse this power with the power of the universe. I have a bright future. I don't know who will be stronger in hundreds or thousands of years. He was still thinking a little unruly. Sure enough, there is still no one to pick you up. Just as he was precariously getting his bearings and preparing to rush there, in the corner of his field of vision in the dark night, two figures, one large and one small, flashing with arcs of electricity, suddenly came into view. As his scalp numbed and he watched, the figure in the huge electric arc shook his head indifferently. You've wasted so much time, disciple, go and arrest him. Yes. The small electric figure beside him nodded respectfully. Turning around, it turned out to be the lead master's chief disciple who had just hunted down this domain lord-level expert to the point where he could not help but feel helpless every day. And for the first disciple to be so respectful and exude a terrifying thunder and lightning appearance. Thunder, Thunder Master. For a moment, this territory lord-level man looked like he was mourning for his concubine, and he was visibly grey and defeated. Find bookstore. He suddenly understood why the other party had been chasing him all night but failed to capture him. Are you preparing to catch a turtle in a jar and surround the area to call for reinforcements? Do you want to use yourself to attract more powerful galactic beings? But he knows that the Milky Way is now in the hands of people in the other world, and there is only one master who is stronger than himself, the giant mosquito Jia Yan. But the relationship between himself and Jia Yan is not good enough for the other party to take risks to save her. Especially knowing that the person who captured him was Master Lei. It was hard to say whether Jia Yan, who had fought against Master Lei, was still willing to take action. In other words, he's going to be in trouble. I've met Master Lei. We, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, have a good trade relationship with you. Bookmark.